Victoria Hale's Rolls-Royce slammed into the concrete barrier outside Ethan Carter's garage at 60 miles per hour, metal shrieking against asphalt as rain hammered the wreckage. Blood streaked down her temple. Her hand shook on the steering wheel. Through the shattered windshield, she saw a man in oil-stained coveralls running toward her, not away from the danger she'd brought with her, but straight into it. 3 black SUVs rounded the corner 2 blocks back. She had maybe 90 seconds before they found her, before they finished what they started. And this stranger with grease under his fingernails had just become her only chance at survival. If you want to see how a broke mechanic and a hunted billionaire survive what comes next, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The fluorescent lights in Carter's auto repair buzzed like dying insects. Ethan wiped his hands on a rag that had stopped being cleaned sometime during the Bush administration and squinted at the engine block in front of him. The 2008 Honda Civic belonged to Mrs. Chen from the Chinese restaurant down the block, and she'd paid him in cashew chicken and a promise to settle up when her disability check came through. That promise was worth about as much as the check engine light winking at him from the dashboard. "Dad?" Lily's voice carried from the office, small and uncertain. Ethan glanced at the clock mounted above his workbench. 3:15. She must have let herself in through the back door after school again, even though he'd told her a dozen times to wait for him to pick her up. "In here, bug." He set down his socket wrench and headed toward the office, wiping his hands one more time out of habit. The grease never really came off anymore. It had worked its way into the creases of his palms like he was becoming part of the machinery. Lily sat at the ancient metal desk, her backpack still on, homework untouched. Her dark hair fell across her face as she studied her shoes with the kind of concentration usually reserved for algebra tests. Something was wrong. What happened? Ethan crouched in front of her, eye level. At 8 years old, she already had her mother's expressions, the way her mouth tightened when she was trying not to cry, the stubborn set of her jaw when she'd made up her mind about something. Nothing. "Lil." She looked up. Her eyes were red. "Kayla said we dress like poor people. She said her mom told her that your garage is going to close and we'll have to move away." The words hit him harder than they should have. He'd known people were talking. In a neighborhood like this, everyone knew everyone else's business. The for sale sign that had been up for 3 months on the building next door. The letters from the bank that kept showing up in his mailbox. The fact that he'd been wearing the same 3 work shirts on rotation for the past 2 years. "Hey." He waited until she met his eyes. "Kayla doesn't know what she's talking about. Neither does her mom. We're doing fine." "Are we?" He wanted to say yes, wanted to promise her everything would work out. Instead, he pulled her into a hug and held on while she buried her face against his shoulder. Through the grimy window behind the desk, he could see the L train rumbling past on the elevated tracks. Beyond that, the Chicago skyline rose in the distance like a promise someone else had made. The garage had belonged to his father, 30 years building engines and replacing transmissions and keeping the neighborhood's cars running. Then cancer had taken him 18 months ago, and Ethan had inherited the business along with its debts and its ghosts. The bank wanted $8,000 by the end of the month, or they'd start foreclosure proceedings. He currently had $347 in his checking account. "You hungry?" he asked. "I can make us some—" The crash cut him off mid-sentence. It wasn't the sound of a fender bender or someone clipping a mailbox. This was metal and glass and physics having a violent disagreement, loud enough to rattle the tools hanging on the pegboard. Lily jerked back, eyes wide. "Stay here." Ethan was already moving toward the garage bay door. He hit the button to raise it, and the old motor groaned as the door began its slow climb. Rain slammed down in sheets. The storm had rolled in that morning and hadn't let up, the kind of October weather that made you forget summer had ever existed. Through the downpour, Ethan could make out the wreckage. A black Rolls-Royce Phantom had demolished the concrete barrier that separated his lot from the street. The entire front end was crumpled, hood buckled, one headlight hanging by its wires. The car must have been flying when it hit. Steam rose from the engine, mixing with the rain. Ethan ran. His boots hit the wet pavement, and his first thought was that whoever was inside had to be dead. No one walked away from a crash like that. But as he got closer, he saw movement. The driver's door was trying to open, hinges screaming. A hand appeared, then a shoulder, and then a woman practically fell out of the vehicle. She was maybe 30, dark hair plastered to her face, wearing what had probably been an expensive gray suit before it got soaked in rain and blood. Her left temple was split open, blood running down the side of her face. She looked up at Ethan with eyes that were barely focused. "Please." Her voice was hoarse. "They're coming." "Who's coming? Ma'am, you need to sit down." "No." She grabbed his arm with surprising strength. Her fingers dug into his sleeve. "You don't understand. They'll kill me. They'll kill both of us if you don't move." She tried to stand and her legs buckled. Ethan caught her before she hit the pavement. Up close, he could see she was shaking, not from the cold, but from something deeper. Terror, maybe. Or shock. "We need to get you to a hospital." He looked around for his phone, realized he'd left it in the garage. "Can you walk?" No hospital." She was scanning the street, head swiveling despite the obvious pain it caused. "No police. Please, I just need—" That's when Ethan saw the SUVs, two of them. Black Escalades with tinted windows, turning onto his street 3 blocks down. They were moving slowly, scanning, hunting. The woman saw them too. She made a sound that might have been a sob or a curse. "Please, I'll pay you anything. Just hide me." Every instinct Ethan had was screaming at him to walk away. This was not his problem. This was the kind of situation that destroyed lives, and his life was already hanging by a thread thin enough that one more complication might snap it completely. He looked at the woman, at the blood running down her face, at the way her hands were shaking. Then he looked at the SUVs getting closer. "Can you run?" She nodded. "Then run." He half carried, half dragged her toward the garage. His boots splashed through puddles. Behind him, he heard tires on wet pavement, getting louder. The SUVs had spotted them. Ethan didn't look back. He focused on the open bay door, on getting there before they made it inside. Ethan slammed his hand against the button and the door began its agonizing descent. Through the shrinking gap, he saw the first SUV pull up to the Rolls-Royce. Doors opened. Men in dark suits climbed out, at least 4 of them, maybe more. The door sealed shut with a metallic thunk. Lily stood in the doorway to the office, eyes huge. The woman in Ethan's arms was barely conscious now, her weight sagging against him. Blood dripped onto his boots. "Dad?" Lily's voice was very small. "It's okay, Bug. Go to the office, lock the door. But now." She ran. Ethan heard the office door close, heard the old lock click into place. He eased the woman onto the ancient couch in the corner, the one his father used to nap on between jobs. She slumped against the armrest, breathing hard. Her eyes kept trying to close. "Stay awake." Ethan grabbed a shop towel and pressed it against her head wound. "What's your name?" "Victoria." She winced under the pressure. "Victoria Hale, sit." The name meant nothing to him. "Okay, Victoria, you want to tell me what the hell is happening?" "Those men. They work for people I trusted. People who want—" She stopped, gritting her teeth against the pain. "It doesn't matter. You shouldn't have helped me." Little late for that. Someone knocked on the bay door. 3 sharp raps, loud and deliberate. Then a voice, muffled but clear enough. "We're looking for someone." Woman, early 30s, dark hair. She was driving the Rolls. "You see anyone like that?" Ethan looked at Victoria. She had gone very still, her eyes locked on the door, waiting. He walked to the door, didn't open it. "Saw the crash. Nobody inside when I got there. Whoever it was must have run off." Silence. Then, "You mind if we take a look around?" "Yeah, actually, I do mind. This is private property. We can make it worth your time." "Not interested." "Petit." Another pause. Longer this time. Ethan could hear his own heartbeat, could hear the rain hammering on the metal roof. Behind him, Victoria wasn't moving, barely breathing. "You're Ethan Carter, right? Own this place?" The question landed like a punch. They knew his name. They'd done their homework fast. "That's right. Heard you're having some financial trouble. Bank's ready to pull the plug. Shame. Your father ran a good business here." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You done?" "Just saying, a man in your position might want to reconsider. We're offering a lot of money for very little effort. All you have to do is open the door." He thought about the bank letter sitting on his desk, about the $8,000 he didn't have, about Lily in the office, probably terrified. He thought about all the ways this could go wrong, All the reasons saying yes would solve his immediate problems. Then he thought about his father, about the kind of man who'd built this garage, about the promises Ethan had made standing next to a hospital bed, holding a hand that had grown too thin. "I think you should leave now." The silence that followed was different, colder. "You're making a mistake." "Won't be my first." Footsteps. Retreating. Ethan stayed at the door until he heard the SUVs start up, until the sound of their engines faded into the rain. Even then, he waited another full minute before he moved. Victoria had her eyes closed. For a second he thought she'd passed out, but then she spoke. "You have no idea what you just did." "Probably not." He grabbed the first aid kit from the shelf, the good one, the one he'd bought after Lily sliced her hand open on a wrench. "But I know what I didn't do. So how about you tell me who those people were?" "My board members. Or their security, anyway." She opened her eyes, and there was something in them that made Ethan pause. Not fear anymore, something harder, angrier. "I built a company, built it from nothing into something worth billions, and they're trying to take it from me." "See, why?" "Because I found out they've been stealing. They've got a merger scheduled, a big one. If it goes through, they'll walk away with everything and leave me with nothing but fraud charges." "So go to the police." "With what proof?" "They control everything. The board, the evidence, even my own security team." She touched the wound on her head and winced. "I was on my way to meet with the one lawyer I thought I could trust. They ran me off the road before I could get there." Ethan sat back on his heels. This was insane. This whole situation was so far outside his world that he might as well have been listening to a story about Mars. "You need a hospital. I need time. I need to figure out who I can trust and how to stop them before they destroy everything I built." She met his eyes. "I need help. Lady, I fix cars. That's it. I don't know anything about—" "You just turned down what was probably a significant bribe and told armed men to leave. Either you're incredibly brave or incredibly stupid." "Option 2, Ethan muttered. Balakis." He started cleaning her wound with antiseptic. She flinched but didn't pull away. "This is going to need stitches. Can you do it?" "I'm not a doctor." "Can you do it?" He looked at her. Really looked. Under the blood and the fear there was something else. The same thing he'd seen in his father's eyes toward the end. Determination. The stubborn refusal to quit even when quitting made sense. "I can try." 20 minutes later, Victoria's head wound was closed with sutures that would have made a real doctor weep. Ethan had done his best with what he had, needle and thread from the first aid kit, his hand steadier than he'd expected. She'd barely made a sound through the whole process. Lily emerged from the office, cautious. "Is she okay?" "She will be." Ethan turned to Victoria. "This is my daughter, Lily. Lily, this is Victoria. She's going to stay here for a little while." "How long?" Lily asked. "Good question." Victoria pulled herself more upright on the couch, moving carefully. "I don't know. A few days, maybe. Until I can figure out my next move." "You can't stay here," Ethan said. "If those guys come back, they won't. Not tonight." Victoria's voice was regaining some of its strength. "They think I ran. They'll search the neighborhood, check hospitals, monitor my credit cards, but they won't expect me to hide in a garage. Because it's a terrible hiding place." "Exactly." She almost smiled. "Sometimes the worst option is the safest one." Ethan wanted to argue, wanted to tell her this was his problem now, that she needed to leave before those men decided to come back with more than threats. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the way Lily was looking at Victoria, not with fear, but with the kind of curiosity she usually reserved for stray cats. Maybe it was the memory of his father's voice. Do the right thing even when it costs you. Or maybe he was just tired of being scared all the time. "Fine," he said, "but we do this my way. You stay out of sight. Don't make calls. Don't go near windows. If anyone asks, I don't know anything about any crash." "Agreed. And you need to tell me everything, all of it, because if I'm risking my life and my daughter's life, I want to know why." Victoria studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Fair enough." Victoria studied. They ate dinner in the garage that night. Chinese food from Mrs. Chen, who'd brought over extra portions when she saw the lights still on. Lily sat cross-legged on the couch next to Victoria, asking questions about the Rolls-Royce and whether it had been scary to crash and did rich people really have cars that cost more than houses. Victoria answered patiently, her voice growing steadier as the night wore on. Ethan watched from his workbench, picking at his lo mein and trying to process what he'd gotten himself into. "So you're like really rich?" Lily was asking. "I was." Victoria set down her chopsticks. "I am, I think. It's complicated. How do you even get that rich ways?" "I built something people wanted. A company that uses artificial intelligence to help other companies work better. Faster decisions, better data, that sort of thing." "What's artificial intelligence?" Victoria glanced at Ethan, then back at Lily. "It's when computers learn to think, sort of. They study information and find patterns humans might miss." "That's cool." Lily was quiet for a moment. "My mom died when I was little. I don't remember her much." The statement hung in the air. Ethan set down his food, but before he could say anything, Victoria spoke. "I'm sorry, that must be hard." Lily shrugged. "Dad says she was really pretty and really smart and really good at making people laugh. He's got pictures, but he doesn't look at them much anymore." Ethan started. "It's true. You hide them in the office drawer under all the papers." Victoria was watching him now. Ethan felt heat creep up his neck. "We should probably—" "Do you have kids?" Lily asked Victoria. "No, I never—" She stopped. "No." "You should. You'd be good at it. You explain things really well, and you're not scared of blood." Despite everything, Ethan almost laughed. Victoria looked genuinely thrown by the compliment. "Thank you, Lily. That's kind of you to say." "It's not kind, it's true. Dad says there's a difference. Your dad sounds like a smart man." "He is, but he worries a lot. I can tell even when he pretends he doesn't, Tuong." Ethan cleared his throat. "Okay, Bug. That's enough sharing family secrets for one night. How about you go brush your teeth and get ready for bed? We don't live here. Tonight we do. I'll set up the cot in the office." Lily looked between them, processing. Then she nodded and headed toward the bathroom off the main shop floor. When she was gone, Victoria turned to Ethan. "She's remarkable. She's 8. Still, yant." They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. Through the high windows, Ethan could see the night sky clearing, stars starting to appear between the clouds. "You want to tell me about this company of yours?" he asked. "The whole story." Victoria leaned back against the couch. Her face was pale, the stitches standing out dark against her skin. "I started Hale Technologies 7 years ago. Just me and a laptop and an idea. Within 18 months, we were profitable. Within 3 years, we were worth $500 million. That's fast." It was. Too fast, maybe. I brought in investors, built a board, hired executives I thought I could trust. She rubbed her temple, careful to avoid the wound. "My COO is a man named Marcus Webb. He's been with me from the start. Or I thought he had been. Turns out he's been planning this for at least a year." "Planning what exactly?" Geese. "A merger with a competitor. On paper it looks legitimate. 2 giants combining resources, doubling our market share. In reality, Marcus has been cooking the books, making it look like I've been siphoning money from the company. If the merger goes through, the new board will have me arrested for fraud while Marcus takes control of everything." Ethan tried to follow the logic. "Why not just expose him?" "Because he's smart. Everything he's done looks like my authorization, my signature, my accounts, my decisions. He's been setting me up for months, and I didn't see it until 3 days ago." "What happened 3 days ago?" "I found emails, hundreds of them, buried in archived servers. Instructions to falsify reports, shift funds, create fake documentation. But I can't prove they're from Marcus. He used encrypted channels, anonymous accounts. Without something concrete, it's my word against his, and he controls the narrative." "So what were you going to do? Before the crash?" "Meet with my lawyer, get him to freeze the merger, buy me time to gather real evidence. But Marcus must have known. He always knows." Victoria's voice went flat. "The SUVs weren't there to scare me. They were there to finish it. Make it look like an accident. Tragic CEO loses control in the rain." Ethan thought about the men at his door, the cold professionalism in their voices.
You really think they would have killed you? I don't think, I know. Marcus doesn't leave loose ends.
They fell quiet again. Ethan looked around the garage, at the ancient tools, the cracked concrete floor, the cars in various states of repair. This was his world, small, manageable, fixable. What Victoria was describing existed in a completely different universe. You can't stay here forever, he said finally. I know. So what's the plan? I don't have one yet. She met his eyes. But I need to move carefully. One wrong step and Marcus wins everything. He shouts.
What about allies? People on your side? I thought I had allies. Turns out I was wrong. Her voice carried an edge now, bitter. I built that company alone, worked 100-hour weeks,
sacrificed everything. And the people I brought in to help decided I was easier to destroy than compete with. Ethan heard something underneath her words. Not just anger, loneliness. The same kind he'd felt standing in this garage at 3 a.m, trying to figure out how to keep the lights on. Different circumstances, same isolation. My dad used to say trust is built, not bought, he said. Means you have to earn it both ways. Maybe you hired the wrong people.
Maybe I did.
Victoria looked at him. Why did you help me? You don't know me. You put yourself and your daughter at risk for a stranger. He thought about it. About the real answer and the answer that made him sound less naive. Because it was the right thing to do. That's it? That's it. Most people wouldn't have. Then most people are smarter than me. She almost smiled. Thank you, Ethan, for what it's worth. Thank me when you're still alive next week. That night, Ethan lay awake on the couch while Lily slept on the cot in the office and Victoria took the break room's ancient recliner. Every sound made him tense. The building settling, the wind rattling the bay door, the distant wail of sirens. He kept expecting to hear engines outside, footsteps, voices demanding entry, but nothing came. The hours crawled past. Ethan stared at the ceiling and thought about choices, about the moment his life had split into before and after. Before, he'd been a broke mechanic struggling to keep his father's business alive. After, he was a broke mechanic harboring a fugitive billionaire and gambling his daughter's safety on the idea that doing the right thing mattered. Around 3 a.m, he heard movement. Victoria appeared in the doorway, silhouetted by the dim security lights. Can't sleep either? Not really. Ethan sat up. How's your head? Hurts. But I've had worse. She walked over, moving stiffly. Mind if I sit? He made room. She settled on the other end of the couch, keeping distance between them. For a while, they just sat there in the semi-darkness, listening to the city breathe. I haven't had a real conversation in months, Victoria said quietly. Everyone I talk to wants something from me. Approval, money, access. Even my friends, the few I have left, they see the company first, the person second. That why you work so much? Part of it. Easier to focus on quarterly reports than ask why I'm building an empire with no one to share it with. You're, Dumbokam. Ethan thought about Lily sleeping in the next room, about coming home every night to questions about homework and complaints about dinner and requests for bedtime stories. It drove him crazy sometimes, the constant demands on his attention, but he couldn't imagine his life without it. Success is supposed to make you happy, Victoria continued. That's what everyone says. Work hard, build something meaningful, and happiness follows. Turns out that's a lie. So why keep going? Because I don't know how to stop. And because admitting I built the wrong life is harder than pretending I built the right one. She turned to look at him. Does that make sense? She turned. More than you'd think. You're happy, though, broke and struggling, but happy. Most days. Ethan rubbed his face. Some days I lie awake wondering if I'm failing Lily by keeping this place open. If I should sell it, find a real job, move somewhere cheaper, give her the kind of stability she deserves. But you don't. Can't. This garage is all I have left of my dad. Letting it go feels like letting him go. Victoria nodded slowly. People keep what matters to them, even when it costs too much. They sat in silence after that. Eventually, Victoria stood, wincing. I should let you sleep. Thank you again, Ethan, for all of this. Don't thank me yet. We still have to figure out how to keep you alive. One problem at a time. She headed back toward the break room, then paused. Your daughter is lucky. I hope she knows that. Ethan watched her disappear into the darkness. Then he lay back down and stared at the ceiling until exhaustion finally pulled him under. Bossen, morning came too fast. Ethan woke to Lily shaking his shoulder, sunlight streaming through the high windows. Dad, someone's at the door. He was on his feet instantly, heart hammering. Who? I don't know. An old guy. He's just standing there. Ethan went to the small window next to the bay door and looked out. A man in his 60s stood on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, studying the wrecked Rolls-Royce. He didn't look threatening, just curious. Still, Ethan felt his muscles tense. Stay back, he told Lily. He opened the door a crack. Help you? The man turned. He had gray hair, sharp eyes, and the kind of face that gave away nothing. Mr. Carter? My name is James Morrison. I'm an attorney. I work for Victoria Hale. Ethan kept the door mostly closed. Don't know who that is. I think you do. Morrison nodded toward the Rolls. That's her car, and unless I'm mistaken, she's inside your garage right now. You're mistaken. Mr. Carter, I'm not here to cause trouble. Miss Hale was supposed to meet me yesterday. When she didn't show and I saw the police report about a crashed Rolls-Royce in this neighborhood, I put two and two together. He spread his hands. I'm on her side. I've been trying to help her stop what's happening at her company. Prove it. Morrison reached slowly into his jacket and pulled out a phone. He tapped the screen and held it up. Victoria's face appeared. A video, by the look of it. She was sitting at a desk, looking exhausted but determined. James, her voice came through the speaker. If you're watching this, it means something went wrong. Trust Ethan Carter. He helped me when no one else would. Work with him. He's the only person I trust right now. The video ended. Morrison pocketed the phone. She sent that to me last night. I've been looking for this place since dawn. Ethan studied the man. Every instinct he had was screaming caution. But Victoria had trusted this person enough to record a message. And if Morrison wanted to cause trouble, he could have brought the cops or those SUVs. He opened the door. Come in, fast. Morrison slipped inside. Ethan shut and locked the door behind him. Victoria emerged from the break room, moving carefully. When she saw Morrison, something in her face relaxed. James. Miss Hale, you look terrible. I crashed a car. Give me a break. She crossed to him. Please tell me you have good news. Some. Morrison glanced at Ethan and Lily. Should we? They saved my life. They deserve to know everything. But Morrison nodded. All right. The merger vote is scheduled for this Friday, 4 days. If it passes, Marcus takes control and you're finished. But I've been digging into his background, and I found something interesting. Before Hale Technologies, he worked for a company called Zenith Analytics. They went bankrupt 5 years ago under suspicious circumstances. What kind of suspicious? The kind where executives walked away rich and investors lost everything. I'm trying to get access to sealed court records. But if I can prove Marcus did the same thing there that he's doing now, it might be enough to convince the board he's the threat, not you. Victoria leaned against the workbench. That's not enough. We need proof of what he's doing now. The emails I found aren't enough without the encryption keys. Then we find the keys. They're stored on a secure server at the office. I can't access it remotely, and I can't exactly walk in there without getting arrested. So we get creative. Morrison looked around the garage, then at Ethan. What do you do when you need to fix something you can't reach? Find another way in, Ethan said slowly. Exactly. Victoria shook her head. James, this isn't... Ms. Hale, with respect, you're out of options. You need that encryption key. If you can't access it directly, you need someone who can. Who? Everyone at the company works for Marcus now. Not everyone. Morrison pulled out his phone again, scrolling. Your head of IT, David Chen. He's been with you since the beginning. Marcus tried to fire him last week. Chen refused to leave without your direct approval. Because he's loyal. Because he's smart. He knows something's wrong. Morrison looked up. If we can get to Chen, convince him to help, he can access that server. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at Ethan. What do you think? Me? Ethan blinked. I don't know anything about corporate espionage. You know people. You know when someone's lying. What's your gut say? He thought about it. About Morrison's story. About the lawyer showing up with a video message and a plan. About the risk of trusting anyone in Victoria's world. I think, he said carefully, that if we're going to do this, we need to be sure. No assumptions. We verify everything. Agreed. Victoria turned to Morrison. Set up a meeting with Chen, somewhere public. If he's willing to help, we move forward. If not, we find another way. I'll make the call. Morrison headed for the door, then stopped. Ms. Hale, for what it's worth, I'm glad you're alive. So am I, James. When he was gone, Ethan looked at Victoria. You trust him? More than most people. Less than I'd like. She touched her stitches. Welcome to my world, Ethan, where everyone's a potential enemy and trust is a luxury you can't afford. Sounds exhausting. It is. Lily had been watching from the office doorway. Now she walked over. Are you going to be okay? Victoria looked down at her. I'm going to try. Good. Lily nodded seriously. Because Dad's good at fixing things that are broken. He'll help you. Ethan met Victoria's eyes over his daughter's head. He saw fear there, determination, and something else. Hope, maybe. The fragile kind that didn't survive much. Yeah, he said. We'll help. Outside, the city continued its routine. Cars passed. The L train rumbled by. People went to work, bought coffee, complained about traffic. Inside the garage, 3 people stood in the filtered sunlight and made promises they weren't sure they could keep. The next 4 days would determine everything. Whether Victoria got her company back or lost everything. Whether Ethan's gamble paid off or destroyed what little he had left. Whether doing the right thing mattered or if the universe didn't care either way. But right now, in this moment, they had a plan. It wasn't a great plan. It might not even be a good plan, but it was something. And sometimes, Ethan thought, something was enough to start with. The meeting with David Chen was set for Tuesday morning at a coffee shop in Lincoln Park, far enough from Hale Technologies' downtown headquarters that no one would accidentally spot them. Morrison had made the call, kept it vague, and Chen had agreed without asking questions. That alone told Ethan something about the man's instincts. Victoria spent Monday night pacing the garage, her stitches itching, her mind racing through scenarios. Ethan watched her wear a path in the concrete while he worked on Mrs. Chen's Civic, tightening bolts and checking fluid levels and pretending this was just another normal day. It wasn't. Nothing about this was normal. You're going to burn a hole in the floor, he said around midnight. Victoria stopped. I can't sit still. Clearly. What if Chen says no? What if Marcus already got to him? Then we figure out plan B. Ethan wiped his hands and stood. Worrying about it now doesn't change tomorrow. Easy for you to say. This isn't your company. No, but it's my garage. And I'm the one who's been lying to my daughter's teacher about why she missed school today. He'd kept Lily home. Didn't want her out of his sight until the situation stabilized. She'd spent the day doing homework in the office and asking Victoria questions about running a business. We're in this together now, like it or not. Victoria's expression softened. I'm sorry. I know I dragged you into something impossible. You didn't drag me. I walked in on my own. He grabbed 2 bottles of water from the mini fridge and handed her one. Get some sleep. We leave at 7. I can't go. They'll recognize me. So we make sure they don't. The next morning, Victoria Hale disappeared. In her place stood a woman in jeans and a Northwestern hoodie Ethan had borrowed from his neighbor, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, cheap sunglasses hiding half her face. The expensive edge she normally carried had been sanded down to something ordinary. She looked like a grad student, maybe. Someone you'd pass on the street without a second glance. This feels ridiculous, Victoria said, studying herself in the bathroom mirror. It feels smart, Ethan corrected. He was wearing his lease-stained work shirt and jeans that didn't have holes. Together, they looked like two people who had nothing to do with billion-dollar tech companies or corporate conspiracies. Exactly the point. Lily, you're in charge until we get back. Lily looked up from her cereal. I'm 8. Then don't burn the place down. Dad, I'm serious. No experiments, no letting strangers in, no ordering pizza on my credit card. You don't have a credit card. Exactly why you can't order pizza. He kissed the top of her head. Mrs. Chen's going to check on you in an hour. If anything feels wrong, you call me immediately. I will. Victoria crouched down to Lily's level. Thank you for sharing your dad with me. I know this hasn't been easy. It's okay. Lily tilted her head, studying Victoria the way she studied stray cats before deciding whether to adopt them. You're scared, but you're trying not to show it. That's brave. I don't feel brave. My dad says brave is being scared and doing it anyway. Victoria glanced at Ethan. Your dad's pretty smart. I know. Lily went back to her cereal. Don't die. I'll do my best. The drive to Lincoln Park took 40 minutes through morning traffic. Ethan kept checking the mirrors, watching for black SUVs or anything that felt wrong. Victoria sat rigid in the passenger seat, her hands clenched in her lap. Relax, Ethan said. You look like you're waiting for an ambush. I am waiting for an ambush. Then fake it better. You're supposed to be a college student grabbing coffee, not a fugitive CEO. She forced her shoulders down, uncurled her fingers. Better? Little bit. The coffee shop was one of those trendy places with exposed brick and succulents on every table. Morrison was already there, sitting near the back with a laptop open. He nodded when they walked in, but didn't acknowledge them otherwise. Smart. David Chen arrived 10 minutes later. Chen was younger than Ethan expected, maybe 28, wearing a graphic t-shirt under a blazer and looking like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes swept the coffee shop, landed on Morrison, then moved past without recognition. Professional paranoia. Ethan approved. Morrison stood and shook Chen's hand, said something Ethan couldn't hear over the espresso machine screaming. Then they both sat. Morrison typed something on his laptop and turned the screen toward Chen. Chen read it, went pale, and typed a response. This went on for 5 minutes. No verbal conversation, just two men having a completely silent argument through a shared document. Finally, Chen stood abruptly and headed for the exit. That went well, Victoria muttered. But Chen didn't leave. He walked past their table, made brief eye contact with Victoria, and kept going to the bathroom. A moment later, Morrison closed his laptop and followed. We're up, Ethan said. They stood and casually made their way to the back hallway. The single-occupancy bathroom door was cracked open. Inside, Chen and Morrison stood in the cramped space looking deeply uncomfortable. This is insane, Chen was saying. Do you know what Marcus will do if he finds out I'm helping? He's going to do it anyway. Morrison's voice was calm. You think refusing to leave when he tried to fire you went unnoticed? You're already on his list. Victoria pushed the door open wider. Chen's eyes went huge. Ms. Hale. David, I need your help. Everyone thinks you're dead or missing. Marcus sent out a company-wide email yesterday saying you were taking an emergency leave due to personal issues. Marcus is lying. He tried to kill me. Chen looked between them, processing. The bathroom was way too small for 4 people. Ethan could smell someone's cologne mixing with industrial soap. He what? The crash wasn't an accident. Those board members you've been watching, the ones having private meetings without me, they're trying to steal the company while framing me for fraud. That's impossible. The security on our systems is excellent. You built it yourself. But Marcus has been using encrypted channels to hide his communications. I found emails, David. Instructions to falsify financial reports, shift money around, make it look like I've been embezzling for months. Victoria's voice stayed level, despite the small space and the stakes. I need you to access the encryption server and get me those keys. Without them, I can't approve anything. Chen's face cycled through disbelief, anger, and something that looked like vindication. I knew something was wrong. The code changes he requested last month, they didn't make sense. Security loopholes disguised as system updates. Can you access the keys? Morrison asked. Maybe. Probably. But it would take time, and I'd have to do it from inside the building. Remote access is locked down. How long? Bam, ki. To get in, copy the data, and get out without triggering any alarms, 2 hours minimum, maybe 3. Victoria was quiet. Ethan could see her thinking, weighing risks against potential gains. When's the building least occupied? Thursday night. Marcus usually works late, but the rest of the floor clears out by 7. If I go in around 9, security won't think twice. I'm there late all the time. That's cutting it close. Morrison checked his watch. The merger vote is Friday at noon. It's the best shot we have. Chen looked at Victoria. But I need to know you're really going to use this. That it's not just going to disappear into some lawyer's briefcase while Marcus wins anyway. I'm going to burn him, Victoria said simply. I'm going to take everything he tried to steal and make sure he never touches another company again. Chen studied her face. Then he nodded. Okay, I'm in. Shuts. They worked out the details there in that cramped coffee shop bathroom like the world's strangest business meeting. Chen would go in Thursday night, copy the encryption keys and any other incriminating data he could find. Morrison would have his team standing by to file emergency injunctions the moment they had proof. Victoria would coordinate from the garage, staying hidden until they were ready to move. What about me? Ethan asked. Everyone looked at him. He'd been quiet, letting the tech people and the lawyers handle their areas of expertise. But now Victoria was about to walk into the endgame with no backup, except a lawyer and an IT guy who looked like a strong breeze would knock him over. You've done enough, Victoria said. This part is dangerous. And the last 4 days haven't been? Ethan, I'm not letting you do this alone. He looked at Morrison and Chen. No offense, but you two aren't exactly intimidating. Something goes wrong, Marcus shows up, or those SUV guys come back. You need someone who's not going to freeze. You think you won't freeze? Morrison asked. I know I won't. I've got a kid counting on me to come home. Ethan crossed his arms. I'm not a fighter. I'm not a hero. But I'm stubborn as hell, and I fix things for a living. That's worth something. Victoria opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. Something in her expression shifted. You'll do exactly what I say. No improvising. Deal. And if things go sideways, you get out. You don't try to save me or anyone else. You run. Not happening, but sure. She almost smiled. You're terrible at following orders. You're terrible at asking for help. We're even. Chen cleared his throat. Are we done? Because this bathroom is really small and I'm pretty sure that customer out there wants to use it. They filtered out one at a time. Careful not to be seen together. Ethan and Victoria left first, walking to his truck like any couple grabbing morning coffee. It wasn't until they were 3 blocks away that Victoria spoke. You don't have to do this. I know. Then why? Ethan thought about it while he navigated through traffic. My dad used to say you measure your life by the things you did when it mattered. Not the easy choices, the hard ones. He glanced at her. This matters. Even if it costs you everything? Especially then. They drove in silence after that. When they got back to the garage, Lily was painting Victoria's nails. Somehow, during Ethan's absence, his daughter had convinced a billionaire CEO to sit still while she applied electric blue polish with the precision of a drunk toddler. What do you think? Lily asked when they walked in. Victoria held up her hands, examining the mess. I think I've never had better nails. You're lying, but that's okay. You're learning. Lily beamed. Dad lies about my art projects all the time. I do not. You told Mrs. Chen my clay sculpture was interesting. That's adult for ugly. Ethan couldn't argue with that. He grabbed a beer from the fridge, even though it was barely noon, and watched his daughter teach a woman worth billions how to blow on wet nail polish. The disconnect between Victoria's world and his had never felt more obvious, or more meaningless. The next 2 days passed in a strange, suspended reality. Ethan worked on cars while Victoria made careful phone calls from the office using a burner phone Morrison had provided. Lily went back to school with strict instructions to tell no one about their house guest. They fell into a rhythm that almost felt normal if you ignored the underlying tension. Wednesday evening, Ethan found Victoria in the garage bay staring at the wrecked Rolls-Royce. The tow truck had hauled it inside on Monday, and it sat there like a monument to bad decisions. Total loss? She asked. Probably, frames bent. You'd spend more fixing it than buying a new one. Seems wasteful. Welcome to car ownership. Ethan grabbed his toolbox and started removing the license plates. What are you really asking? Victoria was quiet for a moment. Do you think we can win? Well, honestly, no idea. He set the plates aside. But I think we've got a shot, and sometimes that's all you get. Very philosophical for a mechanic. I contain multitudes. She laughed, short and unexpected. Where'd you learn that? College? Netflix. He wiped his hands and sat on the ground next to the car. I was supposed to go to college, got accepted to Illinois, engineering program. Then my mom left when I was 17. My dad got sick and someone needed to keep the garage running. He shrugged. Life had other plans. Well, do you regret it? Sometimes. Late at night when the bills are due and I'm counting pennies. But then Lily laughs at something stupid, or I fix an engine everyone else said was dead, and I remember I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. He looked up at her. What about you? You regret building your empire? I regret building it alone. I regret trusting the wrong people. I regret spending 10 years working 90-hour weeks while everyone I knew got married and had kids and built actual lives. Victoria slid down to sit next to him, their backs against the concrete wall. But the work itself, the company? No, that's the only thing I've ever built that actually mattered, until Marcus takes it. He's not going to take it, her voice went hard. I'll burn it to the ground before I let him have it. They sat there in the quiet garage, surrounded by tools and oil stains and the wreckage of a car that cost more than Ethan made in 5 years. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, two people who had nothing in common except bad luck and stubbornness waited for tomorrow. Can I ask you something? Victoria said eventually. Sure. Why did your wife leave? The question hit him sideways. Nobody asked about Sarah anymore. Not directly. She didn't leave. She died. Lily said, I know what Lily said. She was 3 when it happened. Doesn't remember much. Ethan picked at the grease under his nails. Sarah had postpartum depression after Lily was born. Bad. The kind where every day was a fight just to get out of bed. We tried medication, therapy, everything. Some days were good. Most weren't. Victoria stayed quiet. She drove off a bridge one night when Lily was 2. Police said it was an accident, poor visibility, icy roads. But I found the note 3 days later, hidden in her dresser. His voice stayed even through years of practice. She apologized. Said she loved us, but couldn't do it anymore. Said we'd be better off without her. I'm sorry. Me too. He finally looked at Victoria. Lily doesn't know. She thinks her mom died in a car accident because that's technically true. When she's older, I'll tell her the rest. But right now, she gets to remember her mom as someone who loved her. That's worth protecting. You're a good father. I'm a tired father who's making it up as I go. Still good. They fell silent again. Eventually, Victoria spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought about it once. Ending things. Ethan went very still. I was 24. The company was 6 months old and failing. I was living in a studio apartment, eating ramen, working 20-hour days and getting nowhere. One night I stood on my balcony and thought how easy it would be to just step off. She wrapped her arms around her knees. I didn't do it because I was too angry, too stubborn. I wanted to prove everyone wrong who said I'd fail. Did you? Spectacularly. Built a billion-dollar company out of spite and rage and sleep deprivation. She laughed, but it sounded broken. And now here I am, hiding in a garage because the people I trusted tried to kill me. So maybe they were right all along. They weren't. You don't know that. I know you saved yourself. You crashed a car going 60 miles an hour and still had the presence of mind to run and hide. I know you built something from nothing. I know my daughter thinks you're brave. Ethan shifted to face her. And I know whatever happens tomorrow, you're not doing it alone. That has to count for something. Victoria's eyes were wet. She blinked hard, cleared her throat. Thank you. For what? For being real. Everyone in my life either wants something from me or wants me gone. You're the first person in years who just talks to me like I'm human. You are human. Expensive human with terrible taste in cars, but still human. She shoved his shoulder. The Rolls was a gift. From who? Someone who hates you? Probably. They laughed, and for a moment the weight lifted. Just a moment. Then reality settled back down and tomorrow loomed large and unavoidable. Thursday came in gray and cold. Ethan spent the day trying to work, but mostly watching the clock. Victoria was wound tight, snapping at Morrison over the phone and pacing the office until Lily finally told her to sit down before she wore a hole in the floor. You sound like your father, Victoria said. Good. He's smart. At 7 that evening, Chen texted Morrison. Inside the building. So far, so good. Morrison forwarded it to Victoria's burner phone. They all stared at the message like it contained secrets. 7:30. Another text. Found the server room. Starting the extraction. 8 o'clock. Nothing. 8:15. Still nothing. He should have checked in by now, Morrison said. He'd come to the garage to wait with them. Couldn't sit still in his office. The extraction should take 90 minutes maximum. Maybe it's taking longer than expected, Ethan offered. Or maybe something went wrong. Victoria stood abruptly. I'm going. That's exactly what Marcus wants, Morrison said. You show up at the building and he'll have you arrested before you reach the lobby. I'm not leaving David there alone. You won't be any use to him in a police cell. They were still arguing when Chen's next text came through. Got it. But we have a problem. Victoria called him immediately. Chen answered on the first ring, his voice low and tense. Marcus is here. I saw him getting off the elevator when I was leaving the server room. Did he see you? I don't think so, but he's heading toward his office, which means he's going to check the security logs. When he does, he'll know someone accessed the server. How long until he figures out it was you? Minutes, maybe less. Victoria closed her eyes. Get out of the building, now. There's more. I pulled his email archives while I was in the system. Miss Hale, this goes deeper than the merger. Marcus has been planning this for years, since before he even joined Hale Technologies. What do you mean? He deliberately sought you out, applied for the COO position specifically to get close to your company. Everything he's done since day one was building toward this. The words hung in the air. Victoria's face went pale. Why? I don't know. But there are emails going back 5 years to someone named Elena Vasquez. She was the CEO of Zenith Analytics before it went bankrupt. Morrison's head snapped up. The company Marcus worked for before Hale. Well, right. And based on these emails, she's been bankrolling his operation the whole time. Marcus didn't just steal from you. He was sent to destroy you. Victoria sat down hard on the couch. Ethan watched her process this new betrayal, saw the moment understanding crash through whatever defenses she had left. Elena Vasquez was my mentor. She's the one who taught me everything about running a tech company. When she lost Zenith, I tried to help her, offered her a position at Hale. She turned me down. Because she blamed you, Morrison said quietly. Zenith went under because Hale Technologies became the dominant player. You didn't destroy her on purpose, but your success killed her company. So she decided to kill mine. Victoria's voice was hollow. She spent 5 years planning this. Found Marcus, someone I'd trust. Convinced him to infiltrate my company. Waited until I was vulnerable enough to strike. Chen's voice came through the phone, urgent. Ms. Hale, Marcus just walked past me. He's going into the security office. I have to go. David, listen to me. Take the data and run. Don't go home. Don't go anywhere he'd expect. Morrison will find you a safe place. What about you? I'm going to end this. She hung up before Chen could argue. Then she looked at Morrison and Ethan. Change of plans. We're not waiting until tomorrow. Victoria, Morrison started. Marcus knows we have the encryption keys. He's going to move fast, try to accelerate the merger vote, maybe even frame me tonight before we can use the data. Our only advantage is that he doesn't know where I am. So we use that, Ethan said. We make him come to us. No, we go to him, but not at the office. Victoria was thinking out loud now, her mind racing. Marcus lives in a penthouse in River North. Security's tight, but not impossible. If we can get in there, confront him directly with the evidence, maybe I can convince him to back down. You want to break into his apartment? Morrison looked horrified. That's insane. So is everything else we've been doing. At least this way we control the situation. All right. Get. Or he calls the police and has us all arrested. He won't. Victoria's voice was certain. Because if he does, I'll burn everything. The company, the merger, all of it. Marcus wants power more than revenge. Give him an out where he walks away alive, he'll take it. Ethan thought about the men who'd come to his garage, about the cold professionalism in their voices and the implied threat when they'd offered money. He tried to kill you 3 days ago. You really think he's going to negotiate? No, but I think he'll want to gloat first. Men like Marcus, they need you to know they won. She met Ethan's eyes. That's when we hit him with everything we have. Morrison pulled out his phone. I'll have the injunction papers ready. The moment we have proof he can't deny, I file with the court. But Victoria, if this goes wrong, it won't. If it does, Morrison continued, you need to accept that you might lose everything. The company, your reputation, maybe even your freedom. Are you prepared for that? Up on C, Victoria looked around the garage, at the tools hanging on the walls, at Lily's homework spread across the desk, at Ethan standing there in his oil-stained clothes with grease still under his fingernails. I've already lost everything that mattered. The company's just a company. Buildings and code and quarterly earnings. It's not worth dying for. Then why do this? Because Marcus doesn't get to win. Because Elena doesn't get revenge for something I never meant to do. And because somewhere in the last 4 days, I remembered what I was fighting for in the first place. She stood. Let's go remind Marcus who he's dealing with. Lily appeared in the office doorway. Lily appeared in the shashum. She'd been so quiet, Ethan had almost forgotten she was there. Are you going to be okay? Victoria crouched down. I'm going to try very hard to be okay. Promise? I promise I'll do everything I can to come back. That's not the same thing. I know. Victoria pulled her into a quick hug. But it's the best I've got. Ethan kissed Lily's forehead. Mrs. Chen's going to stay with you tonight. You listen to her. You do your homework. You go to bed at a reasonable time. What if something bad happens? It won't. Dad. He knelt down to her level. Bug, I need you to be brave for me. Can you do that? Lily nodded, but her eyes were scared. Ethan hated himself for putting that fear there. Hated this whole situation and the choices that had led them here. But he was in it now, and the only way out was through. I love you, he said. Love you too. Morrison had already left to coordinate with his legal team. Ethan and Victoria headed for his truck, moving fast. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the parking lot. Ethan's hands were steady on the wheel, but his mind was racing. This was happening. They were really doing this. You know this is crazy, he said. Completely. We could still walk away. Let Morrison handle it legally. We could. Victoria stared straight ahead. But we won't. Why not? Because you don't walk away any more than I do. It's why we're both here. Bye-bye, Carl. She was right. Ethan knew it, even as part of him screamed to turn the truck around and go back to Lily. But he kept driving, kept moving toward whatever was waiting in Marcus Webb's penthouse. The city lights began to flicker on as darkness fell. Traffic thickened. The L train roared past overhead. Chicago kept breathing, kept living, completely unaware that somewhere in its concrete heart, a broke mechanic and a hunted billionaire were about to bet everything on one desperate move. River North rose ahead of them, glass and steel towers housing the kind of wealth most people only saw in movies. Ethan's truck looked deeply out of place among the luxury cars gliding past. He found parking 3 blocks from Marcus's building and killed the engine. Last chance to back out, he said. Victoria checked her phone. Morrison had sent the address and apartment number. 42nd floor, corner unit. She looked at Ethan. You ready? Not even a little bit. Good. Me neither. They got out and walked toward the tower, toward Marcus Webb and Elena Vasquez, and 5 years of calculated revenge, toward proof and confrontation and whatever came next. The night air was cold. Ethan's breath plumed white. Somewhere behind them, Lily was probably not doing her homework. Somewhere ahead, Marcus was probably pouring expensive scotch and congratulating himself on his victory. Neither of them knew what was coming. Neither of them knew that in the next few hours, everything would change. But they were about to find out. The lobby of Marcus Webb's building was all marble in attitude. A doorman in a uniform that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly rent stood behind a desk that looked carved from a single piece of granite. He glanced up as they approached, and his expression went from bored to suspicious in half a second. "Can I help you?" The words were polite, but the tone wasn't. Victoria pulled off her sunglasses. She ditched the Northwestern hoodie for a blazer Morrison had grabbed from her office, wrinkled but expensive enough to read as legitimate. Victoria hailed to see Marcus Webb. "He's expecting me." The doorman's eyes widened slightly. Recognition. "Ms. Hale, we were told you were unavailable." "I'm available now, 42nd floor. Correct?" "Yes, but I need to call up first." "Don't." Victoria's voice carried the kind of authority that came from years of running board meetings. "Marcus and I have business to discuss. Private business. If you call ahead, you're interfering with matters that don't concern you. Are we clear?" The doorman hesitated. Ethan could see him weighing protocol against the very real possibility that he was about to get caught in the middle of something above his pay grade. Money won. It usually did. "The elevator's to your left." They crossed the lobby without looking back. Ethan's boots squeaked on the polished floor. Everything here cost more than he made in a year, and it showed. The elevator doors were actual brass, the buttons backlit crystal. When they stepped inside, soft music played from hidden speakers. "You're good at that," Ethan said as the doors closed. "At what?" "Making people do what you want. It's not about making them. It's about giving them permission to do what they were already considering." Victoria watched the floor numbers climb. "That doorman wanted to let us through. He just needed someone to tell him it was okay." "What if Marcus doesn't want to let us through?" "Then we improvise." The elevator rose smoothly, silently. Ethan's stomach tightened with each passing floor. 20, 30, 40. The doors opened onto a hallway that had exactly 2 doors, corner units. Marcus's apartment was on the right. Victoria pressed the doorbell. Somewhere inside, chimes rang out a melody that probably had a fancy name. They waited. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. He'd been in fights before, bar scuffles, stupid arguments that got physical. But this was different. This was walking into the enemy's territory with nothing but a thumb drive full of stolen data and whatever luck they had left. The door opened. Marcus Webb stood there in slacks and a dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, a glass of something amber in his hand. He was maybe 45, fit in that way rich people are fit, with perfect teeth and the kind of tan that came from Caribbean vacations. When he saw Victoria, his expression didn't change, didn't even flicker. "Victoria." He said her name like he'd been expecting her, like this was a scheduled meeting. "I wondered when you'd show up. Can we come in, Marcus? Or should we have this conversation in the hallway?" He stepped aside without a word. The apartment beyond was exactly what Ethan expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, furniture that looked uncomfortable but expensive, art on the walls that was probably original. Marcus closed the door behind them and gestured to the living room. "Drink?" "No, ha! Suit yourself." Marcus walked to the bar and refilled his glass. "I assume you're here about the merger vote." "I'm here about the fact that you tried to kill me." "Kill you?" Marcus turned, and now his expression showed something. Amusement. "Victoria, that's a serious accusation. Where's your proof?" "You ran me off the road, sent your people to finish the job." I sent people to find you after you disappeared. There's a difference." He took a sip of his drink. "As for the accident, I heard about that. Terrible thing. But you know how dangerous those roads get in the rain." Victoria pulled out her phone. Not the burner, her regular one. She'd turned it on in the truck, knowing Marcus was tracking it. knowing he'd see exactly where she was. David Chen accessed your encrypted server tonight. He pulled every email you've sent in the last 5 years. Marcus's smile didn't waver. David's a talented kid. Terrible judgment, but talented. He found your correspondence with Elena Vasquez. Now something shifted behind Marcus's eyes. Just for a second, but Ethan saw it. The first crack in the performance. I've worked with a lot of people over the years. You worked for her at Zenith Analytics. She recruited you, groomed you, and when Hale Technologies put Zenith out of business, she convinced you to infiltrate my company and destroy it from the inside. Victoria's voice stayed level. 5 years, Marcus. You spent 5 years building my trust just to take everything I built. Prove it. I can. Morrison has the encryption keys. He's filing injunctions with the court right now. By morning, the merger will be frozen, and you'll be under investigation for fraud, embezzlement, and attempted murder. Marcus set down his glass. He walked to the windows and stood there with his back to them, looking out at the city lights. When he spoke, his voice had changed. The smooth corporate mask was gone, replaced by something colder, harder. You really think you won? Boy. I think I survived. That's enough. You survived because I let you. He turned around. That crash? I told them not to kill you, just scare you, keep you running until the merger vote passed. Then we'd have dealt with you properly. But you had to go and hide in some mechanic's garage like a rat. Ethan felt Victoria tense beside him. Careful, Marcus. Why? You going to hit me? Call the police? Marcus laughed. You have no idea how deep this goes. Elena doesn't forgive, she doesn't forget, and she sure as hell doesn't quit. Where is she? Victoria demanded. Close, watching, waiting for you to make your move so we could make ours. Marcus pulled out his phone. See, the thing about having 5 years to plan is you prepare for every contingency, including the one where you somehow survive and come here trying to play hero. He tapped something on his screen. Ethan heard a door open behind them. He turned. 2 men emerged from what must have been a bedroom, the same 2 who'd come to his garage that first night. Same dark suits, same cold expressions. One of them had a gun. Really, Marcus? Victoria's voice dripped contempt. Threatening me in your own apartment? Not a threat. Insurance. You're going to give me that phone, you're going to call Morrison and tell him to stand down, and you're going to accept that you lost. Then we'll talk about what happens next. And if I don't? Marcus nodded to Ethan. Then your friend here learns what happens to people who interfere in things that don't concern them. The man with the gun moved closer. Ethan's muscles coiled. He'd been in enough bad situations to know when violence was inevitable. This was about to get ugly, and he needed to figure out how to keep Victoria alive when it did. Marcus, listen to me. Victoria held up her hands, placating. This doesn't have to end badly. You walk away now, disappear, and I won't pursue charges. You keep whatever money you've already hidden. Just let me have my company back. Your company? Marcus's laugh was sharp. You built it on luck and timing. Elena built Zenith on vision and brilliance, and you destroyed it because you got there first. So no, Victoria, you don't get to walk away. You don't get to keep anything. Elena destroyed Zenith herself. I read the court documents. She and her executives were stealing from investors for years. My company succeeding didn't kill hers. Her own corruption did. That's what she let people think. It's what she needed them to think. Marcus's voice carried something now that sounded almost like devotion. Everything Elena did was necessary. She was building something revolutionary, and small minds couldn't understand the vision, you included. She's using you, Marcus, the same way she used everyone at Zenith. When this falls apart, you'll be the one arrested while she disappears with the money. You don't know her. I know people like her. I trusted people like her. Victoria's voice softened. I trusted you. For just a moment, something flickered across Marcus's face. Regret, maybe, or memory of a time before this. Then it was gone.
put the phone on the table and stepped back. Victoria didn't move. If you do this, if you go through with it, you're finished. Not just legally. No one will work with you. No company will touch you. Elena can't protect you from that. She already has. There's a position waiting for me in Singapore. New identity, new company, more money than you've ever seen. All I have to do is finish what I started, by killing me, if necessary. The man with the gun raised it slightly, not aiming yet, but getting ready. Ethan calculated distances, angles, his chances of reaching the guy before he could fire. They weren't good, but standing here doing nothing wasn't an option either. "Marcus?" A woman's voice came from the bedroom doorway. Everyone turned. She was maybe 50, silver hair cut sharp, wearing all black like she was dressed for a funeral. Her face was hard and elegant at the same time. Elena Vasquez. She looked at Victoria with eyes that held nothing but cold satisfaction. "I was hoping I'd get to see you one more time." Victoria's entire body went rigid. Elena. "Hello, Victoria. You're looking terrible. The crash didn't suit you." "Neither did bankruptcy, apparently." Elena smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "Still so clever. Still so certain you earned everything you have. Did you ever stop to think about the people you stepped on climbing to the top?" "I never stepped on you. I built something separate." "You built something better, faster. You took the market I'd spent a decade cultivating and made it yours in 3 years. Do you know what that's like? Watching someone younger, luckier, take everything you worked for?" "I'm sorry Zenith failed. I really am. But that wasn't my fault." "It was exactly your fault, and I've spent 5 years making sure you'd understand what you took from me." Elena walked further into the room. She moved like someone used to being in charge, commanding space without effort. "Marcus, get the phone." The armed man stepped toward Victoria. Ethan moved without thinking, putting himself between them. "Back off!" The gun swung toward him. "Don't. Ethan, don't." Victoria grabbed his arm. "It's not worth it. She's right," Elena said. "He's not worth dying for, and you're not worth him dying for you. Give Marcus the phone." Victoria's hand tightened on Ethan's arm. He could feel her shaking, not from fear, but from rage. She'd been betrayed by everyone she'd trusted, hunted like an animal, and now she was being asked to surrender everything she'd built. But she was also calculating, thinking 3 moves ahead the way she must have done 1,000 times in business. "Fine." Victoria pulled out her phone and held it up. "But I want something in return." "You're not in a position to negotiate," Marcus said. "I'm always in a position to negotiate. That's why I won and Elena lost." She looked at Elena. "You want me to surrender? Fine. But you let Ethan go. He walks out of here right now. He has nothing to do with this." "No." Ethan's voice was flat. "I'm not leaving." "Yes, you are." "Victoria, I brought you into this. I'm getting you out." Quote. Elena watched this exchange with something like interest. How noble. The billionaire CEO protecting her mechanic. It's almost touching. "Do we have a deal or not?" "Why would I agree to that?" "I can take the phone and dispose of both of you." "Because Morrison already filed the injunctions. Whether I call him or not, the merger's frozen and you're under investigation. But if I call him and tell him to withdraw the filings, you get what you want. The merger goes through, you and Marcus get rich, and I disappear." Victoria's voice was steady. "All I want is for Ethan to walk away safe." Marcus and Elena exchanged a look. Some silent communication passed between them. Elena nodded slightly. "All right. The mechanic goes free. But you call Morrison right now, and you use the exact words I tell you to use." "Done." "Victoria, no." Ethan grabbed her shoulder. "You're not sacrificing yourself for me." "I'm not sacrificing myself. I'm buying time." She met his eyes, and in them he saw something he'd missed before. A plan. She was stalling. "Trust me." He wanted to argue, wanted to tell her this was insane, that they could fight their way out or find another option. But the gun was still pointed at them, and Elena was watching with the patience of someone who'd already won. So he nodded. Let her think he was agreeing. Victoria dialed Morrison's number, put it on speaker. It rang twice before he answered.
Victoria? Where are you? I've been trying to reach... James, I need you to withdraw the injunctions. Silence on the other end. What? Withdraw them. All of them. Drop the case. Victoria, we have everything we need. Chen got the encryption keys. We can prove it doesn't matter. I'm done fighting. Let the merger go through. You're not serious. I'm completely serious. Withdraw the injunctions, destroy the evidence, and forget this ever happened. Morrison's voice changed, became careful. Victoria, are you under duress? Elena stepped forward and spoke directly into the phone. Mr. Morrison, this is Elena Vasquez. Miss Hale is with me and Marcus Webb. She's decided that continuing this fight isn't in anyone's best interest. You'll withdraw the injunctions and end your investigation, or things will become very complicated for everyone involved. Is that a threat? It's a statement of fact. You have 1 hour to comply. After that, Ms. Hale's decision becomes permanent. She gestured to Marcus, who took the phone from Victoria and ended the call. Then he put it in his pocket. There. Now we wait for Morrison to do the smart thing, and everyone walks away happy. Except Victoria, Ethan said. Except Victoria, Elena agreed. But that was always how this was going to end. Ethan looked at Victoria. She gave him a slight nod, the signal he'd been waiting for. Whatever she had planned, it was time. He just needed to create the opening. Can I say goodbye? He asked. Before I go? Make it quick, Marcus said. Ethan moved closer to Victoria, close enough that their voices would be low. The armed man tracked at him but didn't intervene. What's the play? Morrison won't withdraw the injunctions. He knows I'd never actually ask him to. He's buying time. Time for what? David copied everything to multiple servers before Marcus knew what was happening. The data's already with the FBI, the SEC, and 3 different news outlets. Morrison was supposed to hold off releasing it until we had proof Marcus couldn't deny. But now he'll release it anyway. The moment that hour's up, Marcus and Elena will be arrested. We just need to survive until then. Ethan glanced at the clock on the wall. 8:42. They had until 9:42 to stay alive in a room with 2 armed men and a woman who'd spent 5 years planning revenge. Simple. That's a terrible plan, he whispered. It's the only plan we have. Elena cleared her throat. That's enough. Mr. Carter, you're free to go. I'm not leaving without her. Then you're not leaving at all. Elena's voice went cold. I offered you a way out. You chose to stay. Marcus, secure them both. The second man moved forward, pulling zip ties from his pocket. Ethan's mind raced. They needed more time, needed to stretch this out until Morrison's deadline hit. He looked around the apartment, searching for anything he could use. His eyes landed on the windows, floor to ceiling, overlooking the city from 42 stories up. You know what's funny? Ethan said, loud enough for everyone to hear. You spent 5 years planning this revenge, but you made the same mistake Victoria made with you. Elena paused. Excuse me? You trusted Marcus. You think he's loyal because he's done everything you asked, but Marcus is a climber. He worked for you, then worked for Victoria, and now he's working with you again. What makes you think he won't turn on you the second it's convenient? That's enough, Marcus snapped. I'm just saying, people who betray once tend to make it a habit. How much of that Singapore money is actually going to Elena? How much are you keeping for yourself? He's trying to turn us against each other, Elena said calmly. It won't work, Maybe not, but you've been planning this for 5 years, right? That's a long time to trust someone. A lot can change in 5 years. Ethan turned to Marcus. Hey, Mamit. Ethan, when did you realize Elena was using you? When did it click that she didn't actually care about you, just about hurting Victoria? Shut up. Because I'm betting it was pretty early. Maybe year 2, year 3, but you went along with it anyway because you figured you'd come out ahead. Classic Marcus move, according to Victoria. Always looking for the angle. Marcus's jaw tightened. Elena was watching him now, really watching him. A seed of doubt planted. Ethan kept going. So here's my question. When this all blows up, and it will blow up, who takes the fall? You think Elena's going to Singapore with you? Or do you think she's got her own exit plan that doesn't include a partner who knows too much? Elena, he's stalling, Marcus said. I know what he's doing.
But Elena's voice had an edge now. Marcus, secure them, now. The man with zip ties grabbed Ethan's wrist. Ethan let him pull one hand back, waited until the man reached for the second hand, then drove his elbow into the guy's nose. Cartilage crunched. The man staggered back, blood streaming. The one with the gun swung it toward Ethan, and Victoria moved. She grabbed a heavy glass sculpture off the side table and threw it. Not at the gunman, at the window behind Marcus. The glass shattered, and suddenly air was howling into the apartment, papers flying, the sound deafening. The gunman's attention flickered for just a second. Ethan lunged. He wasn't a fighter, wasn't trained, but he was desperate, and that counted for something. He hit the gunman low, tackled him sideways. The gun went off, loud enough to make his ears ring. The bullet went wild, punched into the ceiling. They hit the ground hard, wrestling for control of the weapon. Victoria ran for the door. Elena tried to stop her, grabbed her arm. Victoria spun and punched her former mentor square in the face. Elena went down. Marcus was screaming something, running toward the broken window to keep papers from flying out. The whole room was chaos. Ethan got his hands on the gun, twisted it sideways, felt the man's finger still on the trigger. Another shot. This one lower, closer. Pain exploded in Ethan's shoulder, white hot and shocking. He shouted, lost his grip. The gunman rolled away, bringing the weapon up. Then Morrison was there. He came through the door like a freight train, 65 years old, but moving like half that. He had his own gun. When had he gotten a gun? And he put it to the back of the gunman's head. Drop it. Now. We'll pick you up. The gunman froze. Behind him, police were flooding into the apartment, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Marcus was trying to run, but two officers grabbed him, forced him to the ground. Elena was already in cuffs, blood running from her nose. Everything happened too fast to track. Victoria was at Ethan's side, her hands pressing against his shoulder. You're hit. Oh God, you're hit. Bad. I'm fine. He wasn't fine. His shoulder was on fire and everything felt wrong. But he was conscious, and Victoria was alive, and the police were here. Morrison? I called them 20 minutes ago. Told them there was a hostage situation. Morrison was helping an officer secure the gunman. Figured we might need backup. You figured right, Mom. Paramedics appeared. Someone was pushing Victoria aside, cutting away Ethan's shirt, doing things to his shoulder that made him want to pass out. He heard someone say the bullet went through, that he was lucky. Lucky. Right. He felt real lucky bleeding on Marcus Webb's expensive floor. Victoria was talking to police, gesturing, explaining. Ethan couldn't hear most of it through the ringing in his ears and the shock setting in, but he saw Marcus being led away in handcuffs, saw Elena screaming something about lawyers and mistakes, saw Morrison standing by the broken window making phone calls, his voice calm despite everything. An EMT leaned over Ethan. Sir, we need to get you to a hospital. My daughter. I need to call my daughter. What? We'll make sure someone notifies your family. No, I need to... But darkness was creeping in at the edges of his vision. The adrenaline was wearing off and the pain was winning. Victoria, I'm here. She grabbed his hand, held on tight. I'm right here. Lily, I'll call her, I promise. Just stay awake, okay? Stay with me. He tried. Really tried. But the darkness was patient and persistent, and eventually it pulled him under despite his best efforts. The last thing he heard was Victoria's voice, quiet and desperate, saying something that sounded like please. Then nothing. When he opened his eyes again, he was in a hospital room. Fluorescent lights, beeping machines, the smell of antiseptic. His shoulder felt like someone had taken a sledgehammer to it. He tried to move and immediately regretted it. Don't! Lily's voice. She was sitting in a chair next to the bed, her eyes red from crying. Dad, don't move. The doctor said you need to rest. Bug. His voice came out rough. What time is it? Almost midnight. You've been asleep for like 3 hours. Where's Victoria? Talking to the FBI. She's been in and out. Lily leaned forward. Dad, you got shot. You got shot saving her. I know. That's not okay. You can't just get shot. You're supposed to be the responsible one. Despite everything, Ethan almost laughed. Sorry. Don't be sorry, just don't do it again. She was trying to sound angry, but her voice shook. I thought you were going to die. Hey. He reached out with his good arm. She took his hand. I'm okay. Hurts like hell. but I'm okay.
Promise? Promise.
The door opened. Victoria walked in, still wearing the clothes from earlier, now wrinkled and stained. She looked exhausted. When she saw Ethan awake, something in her face cracked.
You're conscious.
Barely.
She crossed to the bed, stood there awkwardly like she wasn't sure what to do. Lily solved the problem by standing up and hugging her. Victoria went stiff for a second, then relaxed and hugged her back. Thank you for saving my dad, Lily said into Victoria's shoulder. He saved me first. Then you're even, Juan. Victoria pulled back, wiped her eyes. The FBI arrested Marcus and Elena. They're both in custody. Chen's testimony and the encrypted data were enough for multiple charges. Fraud, embezzlement, attempted murder. They'll both go to prison for a long time. What about the company? Ethan asked. Safe. The board held an emergency meeting, voted Marcus out, reinstated me as CEO, and agreed to a full investigation of the merger attempt. It's going to take months to untangle everything he did, but the company's intact. She sat down in the chair Lily had vacated. It's over. We won. How's it feel? Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Empty. I thought I'd feel relief or vindication. Instead, I just feel tired. That's normal. Give it time. Time. She laughed, bitter. I wasted 5 years trusting the wrong people. Now I get to spend the next 5 fixing what they broke. You don't have to do it alone. Everyone keeps saying that, but in the end, it always comes back to being alone. That's how you stay safe. Ethan thought about the last 5 days, about hiding Victoria in his garage, about the slow emergence of something that felt like friendship, about the way Lily had painted her nails and the late-night conversations about broken dreams and second chances. You really believe that? Victoria met his eyes. I don't know what I believe anymore. And a nurse came in to check Ethan's vitals, and the moment passed. Lily talked about how Mrs. Chen had made her promise not to leave the garage, about how she'd known something bad was happening. Victoria listened like every word mattered. Eventually, visiting hours ended and the nurse kicked them both out. I'll come back tomorrow, Victoria said from the doorway. If that's okay. It's okay, Ethan said. Dad needs someone to bring him better food than the hospital has, Lily added. Their mac and cheese is gross. I'll see what I can do. They left. The room fell quiet except for the machines beeping steadily. Ethan lay there in the dark and thought about everything that had happened. 5 days ago, he'd been a broke mechanic on the edge of losing everything. Now he was a broke mechanic who'd been shot while helping a billionaire take down a corporate conspiracy. His life hadn't gotten any simpler. If anything, it had gotten exponentially more complicated. But Victoria was alive, Marcus and Elena were in custody, the company was safe. And somewhere in the mess of the last 5 days, something had shifted. Something that felt like it might actually matter. He fell asleep thinking about what came next, about recovery and consequences, and the price of doing the right thing. Outside his window, Chicago kept breathing. The city didn't care about one mechanic in one hospital room. It had seen worse, would see worse again. But for tonight, in this moment, Ethan Carter had survived something most people never would. That had to count for something. The hospital kept Ethan for 3 days. 3 days of physical therapy that made him want to scream, of nurses waking him up every 2 hours to check vitals, of Lily doing homework at his bedside and complaining about the vending machine snacks. Victoria came every afternoon, always carrying something, coffee that didn't taste like dishwater, sandwiches from the deli near the garage, magazines she thought he might like, but that mostly sat unread on the side table. On the 3rd day, she brought a lawyer. Ethan, this is Patricia Keene, Victoria said. She specializes in personal injury cases. Patricia was maybe 50, sharp-eyed and professional in a way that made Ethan immediately uncomfortable. She set her briefcase on the chair and pulled out a folder. Mr. Carter, I've been reviewing your case. The shooting occurred while you were helping Ms. Hale, which means you're entitled to significant compensation. Medical bills, lost wages, pain and suffering. We're looking at a settlement in the high 6 figures, maybe 7. Ethan stared at her, then at Victoria. What? You were hurt because of me, Victoria said. Because I asked you to help. This is the least I can do. I don't want your money. It's not about want. It's about fair compensation for... I said no. Ethan's voice came out harder than he intended. I didn't help you to get paid. I helped you because it was the right thing to do. Patricia exchanged a glance with Victoria. Mr. Carter, with respect, accepting the settlement doesn't diminish what you did. It simply acknowledges that you suffered real harm and deserve to be made whole. I'm not suing Victoria. You wouldn't be suing anyone. This would be a direct settlement from Hale Technologies Insurance. No litigation required. Still no. Brug aussi. Victoria leaned forward. Ethan, you can't work for at least 2 months. Doctor's orders. How are you planning to keep the garage running? How are you going to pay your bills? I'll figure it out. By going further into debt? By losing the garage anyway? She was getting frustrated now. This isn't charity. You earned this. You got shot protecting me. I got shot because I made a choice. My choice. My consequences. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Then you haven't been listening to yourself lately. They glared at each other. Patricia quietly packed up her briefcase. I'll leave my card. If you change your mind, Mr. Carter, the offer stands. After she left, Victoria stayed in the chair, arms crossed. You're being ridiculous. Probably. Your shoulder's going to take months to fully heal. You can't lift anything heavy, can't work on cars. What's your plan? I don't know yet. Exactly. So take the settlement, keep the garage, give Lily the stability she needs. Ethan shifted in the bed, wincing as his shoulder protested. You know what the worst part of the last 5 days was? Not getting shot, not getting threatened. It was watching you realize that everyone in your life who you thought cared about you actually just wanted something from you. Money, power, access, whatever. He met her eyes. I'm not going to be another person on that list. It's not the same thing, isn't it? You hire someone to fix your problem, you pay them. That's the transaction. But that's not what happened here. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then what did happen? I don't know. But it wasn't business. She looked away, out the window at the Chicago skyline. I don't know how to do this. How to have people in my life who don't want something. This cite passagierian. You start by trusting that we don't. Me, Lily, Morrison. We helped because we wanted to, not because we expected a payday. Morrison's my lawyer. I pay him. For legal work, not friendship. There's a difference. Victoria rubbed her face. She looked exhausted in a way that went beyond lack of sleep. I spent 5 years building walls to keep people like Marcus out. Turns out I just locked myself in. So tear them down. It's not that easy. Nothing worth doing is. A nurse came in to check Ethan's bandages, and Victoria left to get coffee. When she came back, she was carrying 2 cups and a bag of donuts from the shop across the street. Truce, she offered. Never been at war. Ethan took the coffee. It was still too hot, but he sipped it anyway. Look, I get what you're trying to do. You want to fix what happened. But you can't fix everything with money. Then what do I fix it with? Time. Being around, showing up. He gestured at the room. Like you've been doing. That's just basic human decency, which is more than most people manage. So stop trying to pay me off and just be here. Victoria sat back down. You make it sound simple. It is simple. Doesn't mean it's easy. They drank their coffee in silence. Outside, the city moved through its rhythms. Traffic and construction and millions of people all trying to get somewhere. Ethan thought about his father, about the lessons learned in a garage filled with broken machines and impossible repairs. Sometimes you couldn't fix what was broken. Sometimes you had to rebuild from scratch. The discharge papers came through that afternoon. The doctor gave Ethan a prescription for pain medication, a list of physical therapy appointments, and stern warnings about not overexerting himself. Ethan nodded through all of it while mentally calculating how quickly he could get back to work. 2 months was too long. He'd give it 3 weeks, maybe 4. Victoria drove them home in a rental car, something practical and understated, nothing like the Rolls-Royce that still sat demolished in his garage. Lily rode in the back, chattering about a project she was doing for school on inventors. She'd chosen Grace Hopper and had about 1,000 questions about computers and programming. Why are you asking me? Victoria said.
I just run the company. I don't actually code anymore. But you used to, right? A lifetime ago. Can you teach me?
Victoria glanced into the rearview mirror.
You want to learn programming? I want to learn everything. Dad says the more you know, the more choices you have. Your dad's right.
Victoria was quiet for a moment. Yeah, I can teach you. If it's okay with your dad. Ethan looked at her. At the careful way she'd asked permission, respecting his role as Lily's parent. It's okay with me. The garage looked exactly the same and completely different when they pulled up. Same cracked concrete, same ancient sign, same neighborhood smells of exhaust and Chinese food. But Ethan saw it through new eyes now. This place had sheltered a fugitive CEO, had become ground zero for a corporate conspiracy, had somehow transformed from a failing business into something that actually mattered to people beyond himself. Mrs. Chen was waiting inside with a casserole and complaints about the temperature. Too cold for November. My joints know. They always know. She hugged Lily, nodded at Victoria, and studied Ethan with the sharp eyes of someone who'd seen too much life to be fooled. You look terrible. Thanks, Mrs. Chen. I'm serious. Too skinny. Too pale. You need to eat. She thrust the casserole at Victoria. Make sure he eats. All of it. None of this picking at food nonsense. Some. I'll do my best, Victoria said. And you? Mrs. Chen turned to Victoria. You're the one who got him shot. I am. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix bullet holes. But you came every day to the hospital. Lily told me. So maybe you're not completely terrible. Mrs. Chen gathered her coat. I have dinner with my daughter, but tomorrow I bring soup. Real soup. Not hospital garbage. After she left, Lily disappeared into the office to work on her homework. Ethan lowered himself onto the couch with more grace than he felt, trying not to jar his shoulder. Victoria stood awkwardly in the middle of the garage, still holding the casserole. I should probably go, she said. You should probably eat. That casserole's enough for 4 people, and Mrs. Chen will know if we don't finish it. How will she know? She always knows. It's terrifying. Chet. Victoria smiled despite herself. She put the casserole in the microwave to heat up while Ethan directed her to the plates and silverware. It was strange watching her navigate his space. She moved carefully, like she was afraid of disturbing something, or maybe afraid of getting too comfortable. They ate at the workbench, plates balanced on the cleared surface. The casserole was some kind of chicken and rice situation, heavy on the garlic. It was delicious. So what happens now? Ethan asked. With the company? I spend the next 6 months cleaning up Marcus's mess, restoring investor confidence, restructuring the board, probably testifying at his trial. Victoria pushed rice around her plate. Morrison thinks we can rebuild within a year, maybe 2. You sound thrilled. I spent 5 years building something I thought mattered. Turned out it just made me a target. The company's not the problem. The people you let in were the problem. Easy to say from the outside. True. Ethan took another bite. But you know what I learned fixing cars? Sometimes the problem isn't the machine. It's the mechanic who worked on it before you. They cut corners, used cheap parts, ignored warning signs. By the time you see it, the damage is already done. But that doesn't mean the car's worthless. Just means it needs someone who actually cares to fix it right. Victoria was quiet. That's either very profound or complete nonsense. Little of both, probably. You're saying I should keep the company. I'm saying you built something from nothing. That takes guts and vision and about 1,000 sleepless nights. Marcus couldn't destroy it. Elena couldn't destroy it. You walked away alive and you won. So yeah, maybe you keep it. But you rebuild it the right way this time. With people you actually trust. I don't know who to trust anymore. Shit. Start small. Morrison, Chen, the people who showed up when things got bad. He gestured at the garage. Build from there. What about you? What about me? Do I trust you? Ethan met her eyes. That's up to you. But I'm not going anywhere. Something shifted in her expression. Why? You don't owe me anything. If anything, I owe you everything. Not how I see it. Then how do you see it? He thought about how to explain it, about the strange alchemy of the last 5 days, how circumstances had thrown them together and somehow forged something neither of them had been looking for. I see someone who's been alone too long trying to figure out how not to be alone anymore. And I see someone who knows exactly what that feels like. He set down his fork. Lily lost her mom. I lost my wife. We've been treading water for years, just trying not to drown. Then you crashed your car outside my garage and everything changed. Not easier, just different. Different how? Like maybe we're not drowning anymore. Maybe we're actually swimming. Victoria's eyes were bright. She blinked hard, looked away. I don't know how to do this. How to be someone's friend without it being transactional. You're already doing it. Showing up at the hospital, bringing coffee, teaching Lily about programming. That's friendship. That's just basic. It's more than basic. It's showing up. It's caring. It's all the things you said you didn't know how to do. Ethan leaned back carefully. You're better at this than you think. They finished eating in silence. Lily emerged from the office to show them her homework, a diagram of how computers work that was surprisingly detailed for a third grader. Victoria studied it seriously, asked questions, suggested improvements. Watching them together, Ethan felt something settle in his chest, something that had been tight and anxious since the shooting. After Lily went to bed, Victoria helped clean up the dishes. She was getting ready to leave when Ethan stopped her. Can I ask you something? Sure. What are you going to do? Long term, I mean. Victoria leaned against the workbench. Run the company. Fix the damage. Try not to trust the wrong people again. That's work. What about life? Work is my life. That's the problem. He shifted his weight, felt the pull in his shoulder. 5 days ago, you said building your empire left you with nothing, said success didn't make you happy. So what would? She was quiet for a long time. I don't know. I've spent so long chasing the next milestone, the next achievement, I never stopped to ask what I actually wanted. Maybe now's a good time to start. And what do you want, Ethan? Beyond keeping this garage running? He thought about it. I want Lily to have a childhood that doesn't involve worrying about money. I want to fix cars without wondering if each month will be the last. I want to stop being so scared all the time that I forget to actually live. That's not too much to ask. Feels like it most days. Victoria pushed off from the workbench. What if I told you I had an idea? Something that could help both of us? I'd say I'm listening. Us. The garage is failing because you don't have capital to expand. You're good at what you do, but you're limited by space and equipment and time. What if you had investment, real investment, not a loan you can't afford to pay back? Ethan's stomach tightened. We talked about this. I don't want your money. It's not charity. It's business. I invest in your garage. You expand. Hire mechanics. Upgrade equipment. Maybe specialize in something specific. Custom work. Performance upgrades. Whatever you're best at. In return, I get equity in the business. You want to own part of my garage? I want to help you build something sustainable, something that doesn't require you working 80-hour weeks just to break even. She crossed her arms. Look, I know you're proud. I know you don't want handouts, but this isn't a handout. It's a partnership. You provide the expertise and the work. I provide the capital. We both benefit. Why would you want to invest in an auto garage? Because I've spent 5 years investing in tech companies and corporate strategies and all the things I'm supposed to care about. And you know what? It made me miserable. Maybe it's time I invested in something real, something I can actually see and touch. She gestured around the garage. This place matters to people. Mrs. Chen, the neighborhood, all the people who bring their cars here because they trust you. That's worth something. Ethan wanted to say no. Every instinct he had was screaming to keep his independence, to not owe anyone anything. But he thought about the bank letters, about Lily's future, about the possibility of actually building something that lasted beyond next month's rent. I need to think about it, he said finally. Fair enough. And if I say yes, we do this the right way. Contracts, lawyers, everything documented. No favors, no special treatment. You're an investor, I'm the operator. That's the deal. I wouldn't want it any other way. I'm a washi. She left shortly after, promising to come back tomorrow with lunch. Ethan sat in the quiet garage and tried to wrap his mind around what she'd proposed. A partnership with Victoria Hale. Investment capital that could actually save the garage. The chance to build something bigger than survival. It felt too good to be true, which usually meant it was. But then again, 5 days ago he never would have believed any of this was possible. Never would have imagined hiding a billionaire in his garage or getting shot in a penthouse apartment or having his daughter bond with someone who lived in a completely different world. Life had a way of surprising you when you stopped expecting it to make sense. The next 2 weeks fell into a routine. Ethan did physical therapy every morning, worked on paperwork and scheduling in the afternoons, and tried not to go crazy from inactivity. Victoria came by most days, sometimes with food, sometimes with Lily's programming lessons, sometimes just to sit and talk. She was different outside her corporate world, quieter, more uncertain. Like she was learning a new language and wasn't sure if she was getting the pronunciation right. Morrison stopped by one afternoon with updates on the trial. Marcus and Elena had both been denied bail. The evidence was overwhelming: encrypted emails, financial records, testimony from half a dozen witnesses. Their lawyers were already talking about plea deals to avoid life sentences. "How's Victoria handling it?" Morrison asked. "Better than expected. She testified last week, right?" "For 6 hours. Did not break once. She was remarkable." Morrison set down his coffee. "The board wants her to do a press conference. Public statement about the conspiracy. Assurance that Hale Technologies is stable. She keeps putting it off. She's not ready. I know, but the longer she waits, the more rumors spread. The company needs to show strength." Ethan thought about the woman who'd sat in his garage at midnight, admitting she'd once considered ending everything. "Give her time. She'll do it when she's ready. She trusts you. Your opinion matters to her. Then my opinion is she's been through hell and needs to heal before she gets back on stage." Morrison nodded slowly. "You care about her." "Of course I do." "No."
I mean, you care. Beyond friendship.
Ethan started to deny it, then stopped. Because Morrison was right, and lying about it felt pointless. Somewhere in the last 2 weeks, something had shifted. The late-night conversations had gotten longer. The comfortable silences had gotten more frequent. The way Victoria looked at him when she thought he wasn't watching had changed from grateful to something else entirely. "It's complicated," he said. "It usually is. We're from different worlds. She's a billionaire CEO. I'm a mechanic who can barely pay his bills. It doesn't make sense. Very little about life makes sense. Doesn't mean it's wrong." After Morrison left, Ethan tried to work on Mrs. Chen's Civic one-handed. It went badly. He dropped a wrench twice, couldn't get the leverage he needed on a stubborn bolt, and finally gave up before he hurt himself worse. The frustration of being useless in his own garage was eating him alive. Victoria found him sitting on the floor, glaring at the car. "Giving up? Taking a break? Looks like giving up to me." She sat down next to him. "What's wrong? Besides the obvious?" "Yeah, besides that." He gestured at his shoulder. "I can't work. Can't lift anything, can't do half the repairs I need to do. I'm basically useless until this heals, which means I'm losing money every day. And people keep telling me to be patient, but patience doesn't pay bills. Is this about the investment offer? No, maybe. I don't know." He rubbed his face. "I've been independent my whole life. Built this place with my dad, kept it running after he died. Taking money from someone else, even as an investment, feels like admitting I failed." "You didn't fail. You survived impossible circumstances." "Barely." "Still counts." Victoria picked up the wrench he'd dropped. "My first startup failed. Completely crashed and burned within 6 months. I lost everything. My savings, my apartment, my relationship. Ended up living in my car for a month while I figured out what came next." Ethan looked at her. "You never mentioned that." "Because it's embarrassing. The great Victoria Hale, tech genius, living in a Honda Civic eating gas station sandwiches." She set the wrench down. "But that failure taught me more than any success ever did. Taught me what I actually cared about. Taught me the difference between building something meaningful and just chasing money." "What's the difference?" "Meaningful things make you scared to lose them. Money just makes you scared to be poor." She met his eyes. "This garage scares you because it matters. Because it's the last thing connecting you to your father. because losing it would feel like losing him all over again. The words hit harder than they should have. Ethan felt his throat tighten.
Yeah. So don't lose it. Take the investment. Expand. Build something your father would be proud of. What if I screw it up? Then you screw it up. But at least you tried. She stood and offered him her good hand. Come on, let's get you off this floor before your shoulder seizes up. He let her pull him up. They stood there close together, her hand still in his. Ethan was acutely aware of how near she was, how her eyes had that look again, the one he'd been trying not to think about. Victoria, I know. It's complicated. We're from different worlds. It doesn't make sense. She smiled slightly. Morrison told me you said that. He talks too much. He cares about you. So do I.
As a friend. As more than a friend. She said it simply, without drama. Just fact. I don't know when it happened or how, but somewhere between you hiding me in your garage and getting shot protecting me, things changed. And I think you feel it too. Bull. Ethan wanted to deny it, wanted to list all the reasons this was a terrible idea, but he was tired of being scared, tired of playing it safe. Yeah, I feel it too. So what do we do about it?
I have no idea. Me neither. She laughed, soft and uncertain. I've negotiated billion-dollar deals, but I have no idea how to do this. We could start slow. Dinner, maybe. Actual dinner, not casserole in a garage. Like a date. Exactly like a date. Okay. She was smiling now, real and genuine. When? When I can lift my arm without wanting to cry. So maybe next week. It's a date. She left shortly after.
And Ethan spent the rest of the afternoon trying to process what had just happened. He'd agreed to a date with Victoria Hale, a real date. The absurdity of it would have made him laugh if he wasn't so terrified. Lily noticed immediately. She had radar for this stuff. You're acting weird. I'm not acting weird. You're smiling at nothing. That's weird. Maybe I'm just happy. About what? He wasn't ready to explain it. Wasn't sure how to explain it. Just life in general. She went back to her homework, but he could see her smirking. 8 years old and already too smart for her own good. That night, after Lily was asleep, Ethan pulled out his phone and looked at the business proposal Victoria had sent over. The investment terms were more than fair. She'd take a 30% stake in the garage in exchange for enough capital to expand, upgrade equipment, and hire 2 full-time mechanics. He'd maintain operational control. She'd provide strategic guidance. It was everything he needed and nothing he'd ever have asked for. He read through it 3 times. Then he called Morrison. It's late, Morrison answered. I know, I need you to review something. Victoria's investment proposal. I already reviewed it. It's solid. I mean, review it for problems. Things I'm not seeing. Ways this could go wrong. Morrison was quiet for a moment. You're really asking me to find reasons not to save your business? I'm asking you to make sure I'm not making a huge mistake. The only mistake would be letting pride destroy something worth saving. Morrison's voice softened. Ethan, I've known Victoria for 3 years. I've seen her make deals with Fortune 500 companies and private equity firms. She's never once offered terms this generous. She's doing this because she cares about you, about what you're building. If you walk away from that because you're afraid of accepting help, that's not strength. That's stubbornness. What if it doesn't work out? Between us, I mean. Then you'll still have a thriving business and equity worth keeping. The investment isn't contingent on your relationship. It's legitimate business. But it changes things. Everything changes things. That's life. The question is whether you're brave enough to let it. After he hung up, Ethan sat in the dark garage and thought about bravery. About his father, who'd built this place from nothing. About Sarah, who'd fought depression until the fight became too much. About Lily, who'd lost her mother but still found ways to laugh. About Victoria, who'd survived betrayal and assassination attempts and was still willing to risk caring about someone again. They'd all been brave in their own ways. Now it was his turn. He opened his laptop and typed out an email accepting Victoria's investment offer. Then, before he could second-guess himself, he hit send. The garage's future was secured. His future was suddenly full of possibilities he'd stopped letting himself imagine. And somewhere out there in the Chicago night, Victoria Hale was probably working late in her office, rebuilding her empire one decision at a time. Things were changing. They'd been changing since the moment that Rolls-Royce crashed through his barrier. But for the first time since Sarah died, Ethan wasn't afraid of what came next. He was ready for it. Victoria's reply came through at 2 a.m. Ethan was still awake, his shoulder aching despite the pain medication, when his phone buzzed. "I got your email. Thank you for trusting me. Let's build something worth keeping." He read it 3 times before setting the phone down. Sleep didn't come for another hour, and when it did, he dreamed about blueprints and possibilities. The contracts were signed 2 weeks later in Morrison's office. Victoria showed up in a suit that probably cost more than Ethan's truck, but she'd stopped trying to hide in his world, and he'd stopped pretending hers didn't intimidate him. They met somewhere in the middle, which seemed appropriate for everything else happening between them. Carter Performance and Restoration, Morrison read from the partnership agreement. "That's the new name?" "That's it," Ethan said. "Performance work and vintage restoration. That's where the real money is." Victoria signed her name with a pen that looked like it belonged in a museum. "When do renovations start?" "Boss. Next week. Contractors coming Monday to look at expanding the bay, adding a paint booth, upgrading the electrical." Ethan had spent the last few days planning with an architect Victoria had recommended. The garage that had barely kept the lights on was about to become something his father would have called ambitious. "Figure 3 months until we're fully operational." "What about staff?" "Interviewed 2 mechanics yesterday. Both good. One specializes in German imports, the other's got a background in classic American muscle. Between them and me, we should be able to handle most jobs." Morrison slid the contracts across the desk. "Congratulations, you're officially business partners." They shook hands across the table. Victoria's grip was firm, professional, but her eyes held something warmer, something that made Ethan's stomach tighten in ways that had nothing to do with business. Their first date happened 3 days later. Ethan had insisted on planning it himself, which meant he spent 2 days panicking about where to take a billionaire who'd probably eaten at every 5-star restaurant in Chicago. He finally settled on a neighborhood Italian place that had been around since the 60s. Good food, zero pretension, and far enough from downtown that they wouldn't run into anyone from Victoria's world. He picked her up at her penthouse wearing the one decent shirt he owned and trying not to feel like an imposter. Victoria answered the door in jeans and a sweater, her hair down, no makeup beyond basic necessities. She looked like a person instead of a CEO, and Ethan felt something in his chest relax. "You clean up nice," she said. "You clean down nice." She laughed. "Is that a compliment?" "I'm working with limited material here." The restaurant was everything Ethan had hoped for. Warm lighting, red checkered tablecloths, the smell of garlic and tomato sauce heavy in the air. They sat in a corner booth and ordered wine that came in glasses thick enough to survive a fall. The waiter was about 70 and called everyone hon without irony. "This is perfect," Victoria said after he left. "It's nothing fancy." "Exactly. I'm tired of fancy." She looked around the restaurant. "When's the last time you went on a date?" "Baupas." "Honestly, 5 years, maybe 6. "Since your wife?" "Yeah. Tried a few times after she died. Never felt right. Like I was betraying something." He sipped his wine. "What about you?" "Last relationship ended 3 years ago. He was another CEO. We understood each other's schedules, shared the same ambitions. It was practical and efficient and completely empty." She traced the rim of her glass. "We broke up over email because neither of us had time for a phone call. That should have told me something." "What would it have told you?" "That I was building a life nobody wanted to be part of, including me." The food came, pasta and meatballs for him, chicken parmesan for her. They ate and talked about everything except business. About Lily's latest science project, about the trial, which was dragging on but going exactly as Morrison had predicted, about the upcoming holidays and how neither of them had plans beyond working. "You should come to Thanksgiving," Ethan said. "At the garage. Me, Lily, Mrs. Chen. She'll probably invite half the neighborhood. I don't want to intrude." "You wouldn't be intruding. You'd be included. There's a difference." Victoria set down her fork. I need to tell you something. Okay. I'm not good at this. At relationships. At letting people in. I've spent so long keeping walls up that I don't know how to take them down without everything collapsing. So we take them down slowly. One brick at a time. What if I hurt you? What if I get scared and run? Then I'll give you space and wait for you to come back. Ethan reached across the table, took her hand. Victoria, I'm not expecting perfect. I'm not even expecting easy. I'm just expecting honest. I can do honest. Then we're good. They finished dinner and walked through the neighborhood afterward, past closed shops and apartment buildings with lights glowing in windows. The November air was cold enough to see their breath. Victoria walked close enough that their shoulders bumped occasionally, and Ethan wondered if she was doing it on purpose. Can I ask you something? She said eventually. Sure. Why me? You could have walked away that first night, could have told those men where I was and taken their money. Why didn't you? Ethan thought about how to answer, about the real reasons beneath the simple ones. My dad used to say that character is what you do when nobody's watching and nothing's at stake, but I think he had it backwards. Character is what you do when everyone's watching and everything's at stake, when the choice costs you something. He looked at her. You were bleeding and scared and asking for help. Walking away would have been easier, but it wouldn't have been right. That's simple. You're a better person than most. I'm a stubborn person with a kid who's watching everything I do. Those two things tend to keep you honest. They walked a few more blocks before circling back to his truck. Ethan drove her home through streets that had started to feel less foreign. The city was the same, but his place in it had shifted. 6 weeks ago, he'd been drowning. Now he was building something that might actually last. He walked her up to her building. They stood in the lobby, that awkward moment at the end of a first date where nobody's quite sure what comes next. I had a good time, Victoria said. Me too. We should do it again. Definitely. She leaned in and kissed him, just once, quick and soft, before pulling back. Good night, Ethan. Good night. He waited until she was in the elevator before heading back to his truck. His shoulder ached and his feet hurt, and he had to be up in 6 hours to take Lily to school. But he was smiling the whole drive home. The next 3 months were controlled chaos. Contractors tore apart the garage and rebuilt it better. Ethan hired his mechanics. Raphael, who spoke 3 languages and could diagnose engine problems by sound alone, and Tommy, who'd restored a 1967 Mustang in his mother's garage and never stopped talking about it. They were good guys, hard workers, and they didn't ask too many questions about why a billionaire kept stopping by with coffee and unsolicited business advice. Lily's programming lessons with Victoria had evolved into weekly sessions that covered everything from basic coding to complex algorithms. Ethan would find them hunched over a laptop, Victoria explaining some concept while Lily took notes in handwriting that looked like a drunk spider had fallen in ink. They were building something too, though Ethan couldn't quite define what. Friendship, maybe. Or the early stages of family. Marcus Webb's trial ended in January. Guilty on all counts, 30 years in federal prison. Elena Vasquez got 25. Morrison called with the verdict while Ethan was under a Porsche 911, replacing a clutch. It's over, Morrison said. They're both done. How's Victoria taking it? She's relieved, but also sad, I think. Marcus was her friend once. Seeing him convicted means accepting that friendship was never real. That's a hard thing to accept. It is, but she's stronger than she knows. The garage reopened in February with a soft launch that was mostly neighborhood people stopping by to see what had changed. Everything and nothing. The bones were the same, but the execution was better. 2 full bays instead of 1 cramped space. Proper equipment instead of tools, held together with hope and duct tape. A waiting area with actual chairs instead of a sagging couch that smelled like oil. Mrs. Chen brought dumplings. Raphael's entire extended family showed up. Tommy invited his car club, and suddenly the parking lot was full of modified Hondas and restored Chevelles. Victoria stood in this corner with Lily, watching the controlled chaos with something that looked like wonder. You built this, she said to Ethan later after most people had left. We built this. You did the hard part. The hard part was accepting help. The rest was just work. He looked around the garage at what it had become. My dad would have loved this. He'd be proud of you. Maybe. Probably. I don't know. Ethan turned to face her. I spent 5 years trying to keep his dream alive by keeping everything exactly the same. Turns out the dream wasn't the building or the business. It was the idea that you could build something that mattered, something that helped people. That part's still here, just bigger now. Victoria kissed him then, right there in the middle of the garage with Lily watching and Raphael pretending not to notice. It was the first time they'd been obviously together in public, and Ethan expected to feel self-conscious. Instead, he just felt right. Spring came slowly, then all at once. The garage's calendar filled up 3 weeks out. Custom orders started coming in from across the city. Tommy pulled off a restoration on a 1972 Camaro that ended up in a car magazine. Raphael's reputation brought in the European imports, BMWs and Mercedes and Audis that their owners didn't trust to anyone else. Money stopped being a daily crisis and became something Ethan checked once a week instead of once an hour. He paid off the bank in April, walked in with a cashier's check for the full remaining balance and handed it to the same loan officer who'd been threatening foreclosure 6 months earlier. The man's expression was worth every penny. "Congratulations, Mr. Carter." "Thanks. We'd be happy to discuss expansion loans if you're interested." "I'm not, but I appreciate the offer." Walking out of that bank debt-free felt better than anything Ethan had experienced since Lily was born. The garage was his, fully, completely, without qualifications or countdown timers. He drove straight to Victoria's office and told her. She was in a board meeting. Her assistant tried to stop him, but Ethan walked right past, opened the door to the conference room, and announced to 12 executives in expensive suits that he'd just paid off his garage. Victoria stood up, excused herself, and followed him into the hallway. "You just interrupted a board meeting." "I know. Sorry." "Don't apologize. That was amazing." She was laughing, something she did more often now. "You're completely insane." "Probably, but we're debt-free. The garage is mine." "Ours, 30%, remember?" "Ours," he agreed. "We should celebrate." I have 3 more meetings this afternoon." "Cancel them." "Better." "I can't just—" She stopped, looked at him. "Actually, I can. Give me 10 minutes to wrap up with the board." They celebrated with deep dish pizza on the roof of her office building, 40 stories above Chicago. It was too cold to be comfortable, but neither of them cared. They ate with their fingers and watched the city move below them. Millions of people all living their own complicated stories. "Can I tell you something?" Victoria said eventually. "Always. I'm happy. Actually, genuinely happy. I didn't think I remembered how." "What changed?" "I stopped trying to prove something. Stopped chasing achievement for its own sake." She looked at him. "Started building a life instead of just a career." "How's that working out?" "Better than expected. Turns out having people who care about you matters more than having people who work for you." Revolutionary concept, and for me it is. Well, they finished the pizza and stayed on the roof until the sun started to set. The skyline turned gold, then orange, then purple in the fading light. Ethan thought about the distance between where he'd been 6 months ago and where he was now. The distance between drowning and swimming. It wasn't as far as it seemed, but it was everything. June brought Lily's 9th birthday. They celebrated at the garage with a party that was half neighborhood kids and half car enthusiasts who showed up because Tommy had mentioned it at the last Cars and Coffee meetup. Someone brought a vintage Ferrari. Someone else brought their kid's birthday present, a remote control car that cost more than Ethan's first truck. Lily loved every minute of it. Victoria gave her a laptop with programming software already installed. "For the next phase of lessons," she explained. Lily hugged her hard enough to make Victoria stumble. "This is the best present ever." "Better than the Ferrari?" "Way better. I can't drive the Ferrari for like 7 years." That night, after everyone had left and Lily was asleep, Ethan and Victoria sat on the roof above the garage. It had become their spot over the last few months, the place they went when they needed to talk or just be quiet together. The city stretched out around them, infinite and indifferent and somehow comforting in its permanence. "I've been thinking," Victoria said. "Dangerous. I'm serious. The company's stable now, better than stable. We're growing again, expanding into new markets. The board actually trusts me. That's good." "It is. But I've been doing something I never did before. I've been delegating, letting other people handle things I used to think only I could do. She turned to look at him. Turns out the company doesn't fall apart when I'm not there every second. Who knew? Everyone except you. Come. Fair. She was quiet for a moment. I've been spending more time here, at the garage, with you and Lily, and I keep thinking about what you said about your dad, about how the dream wasn't the building, it was building something that mattered. Okay. What if I did that? Not with cars, obviously, but with something else. Something hands-on and real instead of just digital. Like what? What? I don't know yet, but I want to figure it out. I want to build something I can actually see helping people instead of just improving quarterly earnings. She looked at him. Does that make sense? Complete sense. What would you do with Hale Technologies? Some trades. Keep running it, but differently. I've been talking to Chen about taking over as COO. He's brilliant, and he actually cares about the work instead of just the money. With him handling day-to-day operations, I could focus on strategy and new ventures. You trust him? I do, which is terrifying and necessary. She smiled. You taught me that about trust. I didn't teach you anything, you just remembered what you already knew. They sat in comfortable silence after that. Ethan thought about how life had a way of circling back to the same lessons taught in different ways. His father had taught him about building things that mattered. Sarah had taught him about love and loss, and the impossibility of perfect happiness. Lily taught him daily about resilience and hope. And Victoria was teaching him that it was never too late to rebuild, to try again, to risk caring about something new. Summer hit Chicago like a physical force. The garage stayed busy with people wanting their cars ready for road trips and weekends at the lake. Raphael got engaged to his girlfriend of 6 years. Tommy bought a 1971 Nova that he swore he'd restore by winter. Mrs. Chen kept bringing food and advice in equal measure, neither of which Ethan could refuse. On a Friday night in August, Victoria showed up at the garage with something in her hands. A small box wrapped in paper that Lily had probably helped with based on the excessive tape. What's this? Ethan asked. Open it. Inside was a key. Not a car key, something older and more ornate. Ethan held it up to the light. What's it for? There's a building 3 blocks from here. Old warehouse, mostly empty. I bought it last month. You bought a warehouse? I bought a possibility. The building needs work, but it's got good bones. High ceilings, natural light, solid foundation. She took the key back, turned it over in her hands. I was thinking about turning it into a community space. Part workshop, part classroom, part incubator for small businesses. Teach people job skills. Help them start their own companies. Give them the resources I wish I'd had when I was starting out. Ethan stared at her. That's incredible. It's ambitious. Maybe too ambitious. I'd need help running it. People who understand what it's like to build something from nothing. She met his eyes. I was hoping you might have some ideas about who could help. Victoria, I'm not asking you to leave the garage, but maybe you could consult. Help me figure out what people actually need instead of what I think they need. Make sure I'm building something real. He pulled her close, kissed her properly. Of course I'll help. Yeah? Yeah, but on one condition. What's that? You name it something better than Victoria's warehouse. She laughed against his shoulder. I'll work on it. They told Lily at dinner. Her immediate response was to start planning what classes they should offer, which businesses they should help, how they should organize the space. She'd gotten Victoria's strategic thinking and Ethan's practical approach, and the combination was occasionally terrifying. Can we teach programming? Lily asked. Definitely, Victoria said. And car repair? If your dad's willing to teach it. What about art? Sarah Rodriguez in my class is really good at painting, but her family can't afford supplies. Ethan felt something catch in his throat. Lily so rarely mentioned her classmates' problems, too used to having her own struggles to notice others. But she was paying attention now. Growing up, becoming someone who saw beyond her own world. We'll figure it out, he said. All of it. The warehouse project consumed Victoria's free time through the fall. She hired contractors, filed permits, met with community leaders about what the neighborhood actually needed. Ethan helped where he could, advising on equipment and layout, and the practical realities of teaching people to work with their hands. Lily created a website. Raphael designed a logo. Tommy spread the word through his car clubs. The grand opening was scheduled for late October, almost exactly 1 year after Victoria's Rolls-Royce had crashed outside Ethan's garage. The timing wasn't intentional, but it felt right. A year ago, they'd been strangers. Now they were partners in multiple senses of the word, building something neither of them could have imagined alone. 2 nights before the opening, Ethan found Victoria sitting in the empty warehouse, surrounded by unpacked boxes and unassembled furniture. She looked exhausted and overwhelmed and completely uncertain. "What if nobody comes?" she asked. "Then we try again. What if I'm terrible at this? What if I built another thing I'm good at on paper, but awful at in practice? Then you learn, same as the rest of us." He sat down next to her on the floor. "Victoria, you're allowed to be scared, but you're not allowed to quit before you start." "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been this wise. You were just too successful to notice." She shoved him, but she was smiling. "Thank you for believing in this. In me. Always." The warehouse opening drew 300 people. Local residents, small business owners, teachers, kids from Lily's school. The mayor showed up and gave a speech about community investment. Morrison came with a photographer to document everything. Mrs. Chen brought enough egg rolls to feed everyone twice. Ethan stood with Victoria and Lily and watched people explore the space they'd built. The workshop area with tools and equipment. The classroom section with computers and whiteboards. The small business incubator with desks and meeting rooms. The cafe that would serve coffee and provide job training. It was everything Victoria had envisioned and more. "We did it," she said quietly. "You did it," Ethan corrected. "This was your dream. But you helped me build it. That's the difference." Raphael brought over a woman who wanted to learn automotive repair. Tommy was talking to a teenager about restoration work. Morrison was introducing Victoria to someone from a foundation interested in funding expansion to other neighborhoods. Life was happening in real time, and for once Ethan wasn't worried about whether they could sustain it. They would figure it out. They always did. That evening, after everyone had left and they were locking up, Victoria turned to Ethan with an expression he couldn't quite read. "I need to tell you something." His stomach dropped. "Okay." "Don't look so scared. It's good. At least I think it's good. I hope it's good." She was talking too fast, nervous. "I've been thinking about the future, about what I want my life to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And every version of that future includes you and Lily, which is terrifying because I've never let myself imagine a future with other people in it." "Victoria, let me finish, please." She took a breath. "I know we've only been together for 8 months. I know that's not long by any reasonable standard. But I also know that I don't want to build anything else without you. I don't want to celebrate victories alone or face failures alone. I don't want to go back to a life where work is everything and people are just complications." "What are you saying?" "Betrayal. I'm saying that I love you and I love Lily and I want to be part of your family if you'll have me. Not someday. Now. However that looks, whatever that means, I'm all in." Ethan felt his throat tighten. He'd known this was coming, had felt it building for months. But hearing it said out loud was different, real. "I love you too. We both do. But you need to understand what you're signing up for. Lily's 9 years old and she's never going to stop asking questions. She'll want to know where this is going, when you're moving in, if you're going to marry her dad. Are you ready for that?" "No, but I don't think anyone's ever really ready for the important things." Victoria stepped closer. "I just know I'd rather figure it out with you than stay safe alone." "Then, yeah, you're part of this family. You have been for a while now." She kissed him there in the empty warehouse, in the space she'd built with his help and Lily's input and Morrison's legal expertise and the support of a neighborhood that had learned to trust them. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. But it was real, and it was theirs. And that was enough. They picked up Lily from Mrs. Chen's apartment on the way home. She took one look at their faces and grinned. "You told him you love him." Victoria blinked. "How did you? You get this look. Like you're scared but happy at the same time. You had it all day." And that means I told him I love him? Obviously. Lily grabbed her backpack. So are you moving in or what? We haven't discussed that yet. You should move in. Our apartment's bigger than the garage, but smaller than your place, so it's like medium-sized. Plus, you already have a toothbrush in our bathroom. Ethan laughed. Bug, give us a minute to breathe. I'm just saying, if you're going to be family, you should probably live together. That's how families work. Since when did you become an expert on how families work? Since when did you become a niece? Since I started paying attention. Lily looked between them. I like her, Dad. I want her to stay. Me too, Bug. Me too. They drove home through streets that had become familiar. Past the garage that was thriving. Past the warehouse that was just beginning. Past all the places where their lives had intersected and intertwined until the boundaries between Victoria's world and Ethan's had blurred into something neither of them had expected. Victoria did move in, eventually. Not immediately, because they both agreed that rushing would be stupid after they'd been so careful about everything else. But gradually, over the course of weeks and months, her things migrated to their apartment. Clothes in the closet, books on the shelf, coffee mugs that actually matched. Until one day, Ethan realized she'd been there more than she'd been at her penthouse, and it was time to stop pretending this was temporary. The proposal happened on a snowy night in December, exactly 13 months after the crash. Ethan had planned something elaborate, then scrapped it for something simple. He took Victoria back to the garage, to the exact spot where her Rolls-Royce had destroyed his concrete barrier. Someone had repaired the barrier months ago, but the place still felt significant. This was where everything changed, where two impossible strangers had collided and somehow built something neither of them could have built alone. Why are we here? Victoria asked, her breath fogging in the cold air. Because this is where it started. Where you crashed into my life and refused to leave. I thought you were the one who refused to leave. I told you to let me go. Details. He pulled out the ring he'd been carrying for 2 weeks, waiting for the right moment. Victoria Hale, you are the most stubborn, complicated, brilliant person I've ever met. You drive me crazy on a regular basis. You work too hard, you think too much, and you're terrible at asking for help. But you're also kind and brave, and you make Lily laugh, which is basically the highest compliment I can give anyone. So will you marry me? Will you keep building this weird, unexpected life with us? She was crying, actually crying, tears running down her face in the December cold. Yes. Obviously, yes. How is that even a question? Because I had to ask properly. Lily's watching from the office window, and she'll be mad if I don't do it right. Victoria looked toward the garage. Sure enough, Lily's face was pressed against the glass, grinning like she'd won something. How long has she been there? Since we pulled up. This was her idea, actually. She said proposals should happen where the story started. She's 9. She's smarter than both of us combined. Victoria laughed through her tears. Ethan slipped the ring on her finger. Nothing extravagant. A simple band with a single stone, but he'd had it engraved with the date of the crash. The day everything changed, she held it up to the streetlight, reading the inscription, and laughed harder. You're such a sentimental mechanic. You're marrying a sentimental mechanic. Too late to back out now. Lily came sprinting out of the garage, nearly slipping on ice in her excitement. She said yes. She said yes, Ethan confirmed. Finally, I've been waiting forever. Lily hugged Victoria around the waist. You're going to be my actual mom now, like official. Victoria went very still. Lily, I could never replace your mother. I wouldn't want to. I know, but you could be my second mom. The one who teaches me programming and helps Dad fix cars and makes us eat vegetables. Every kid should have as many people loving them as possible, right? Right. Victoria's voice cracked. Yeah, I can do that. They stood there in the cold, the three of them, while snow started to fall. Somewhere in the city, Victoria's company was operating without her constant oversight and doing fine. Somewhere nearby, the warehouse was closed for the night, but would open tomorrow to people building their own impossible futures. And in this moment, in this spot where chaos had crashed into routine 13 months ago, a family that shouldn't have existed was thriving anyway. The wedding happened in spring, small and simple in the warehouse they'd built together. Just close friends, family, and half the neighborhood. Mrs. Chen catered. Raphael was best man. Lily was maid of honor and took the job more seriously than anyone expected, organizing details and managing schedules with the precision of a project manager. Morrison officiated, because of course he did. Ethan stood at the front of the room and watched Victoria walk toward him, and he thought about all the accidents that had led here. The crash that should have killed her. The choice to help when walking away would have been easier. The gunshot that should have destroyed everything but somehow brought them closer. All the small moments that added up to this one impossible, improbable moment. "You ready?" Morrison asked quietly. "Absolutely." Victoria reached him and took his hands. Her dress was simple, elegant, nothing like the expensive suits she used to wear like armor. Her hair was down. She was smiling. She looked happy in a way Ethan had never seen in those first desperate days when she'd bled on his garage floor and begged for help. The vows were traditional because neither of them trusted themselves to write something that wouldn't turn into a disaster of emotions. They said the words that people had been saying for generations, promised to love and honor and all the rest. But when Morrison said they could kiss, when Ethan pulled Victoria close and heard everyone cheering, he knew the real promises were the ones they'd been making all along. To show up, to try, to build something together that was stronger than what either of them could build alone. The reception lasted until midnight. People danced. Tommy's car club friends told increasingly unbelievable stories. Mrs. Chen cried and blamed it on allergies, even though everyone knew better. Lily gave a speech about how her dad was the best mechanic in Chicago, and Victoria was the smartest person she knew. And together they were basically unstoppable. Near the end of the night, Ethan and Victoria snuck up to the roof. Their spot. The place they went when they needed perspective. The city spread out below them, infinite and indifferent and somehow perfect. "We did it," Victoria said. "Got married?" "Yeah, I was there." "No, I mean, we actually built something that works. The garage is thriving. The warehouse is helping people. We're married. Lily's happy. Everything that was broken is fixed." "Not everything. My shoulder still aches when it rains. You still work too much. Lily still has nightmares sometimes about losing her mom. So we're not perfect." "We're absolutely not perfect." Ethan pulled her close. "But we're real, and we're trying, and we're together. That's enough." Victoria leaned against him. "I was so scared that day. When I crashed outside your garage, I thought I was going to die alone, that everything I'd built would disappear, and nobody would actually miss me. Just the company, just the money. And now I know what I was building was never the important part. It was who I built it with, who I shared it with." She looked up at him. "Thank you for not walking away. Thank you for being stubborn enough to help someone you had no reason to trust. Thank you for crashing into my life and refusing to leave." They stayed on the roof until the cold drove them back inside. The party was winding down. Guests were saying goodbye. Lily was asleep on a couch, exhausted from being the perfect maid of honor. Ethan picked her up carefully, and she mumbled something about the wedding being perfect before going back to sleep. "She's right," Victoria said. "It was perfect. Nothing's perfect." "Then it was perfectly imperfect. Now you're just making up words." Tokat. They drove home through empty streets. The city was quiet at this hour, the kind of quiet that only happens after midnight when most people are asleep and the night shift is just beginning. Ethan thought about how far they'd come, about the garage that was now Carter Performance and Restoration, with a waiting list that extended into next month, about the warehouse that was already planning an expansion, about Victoria, who'd learned to delegate and trust and build a life outside boardrooms, about Lily, who'd gained a second mother and a family that kept growing, about himself, the mechanic who'd been drowning in debt and fear and had somehow learned to swim. Because that's what this whole impossible year had taught him, that you could be failing and still find a way forward, that helping someone else often helped yourself, that the right thing to do was rarely the easy thing, but it was always worth it. That family wasn't just blood, it was choice and commitment and showing up even when things got hard. That love, real love, wasn't about perfection. It was about finding someone whose damage fit with yours in a way that made you both stronger. Someone who saw your worst moments and stayed anyway. Someone who built with you instead of for you. A year ago, Ethan Carter was a broke mechanic watching his father's dream die. Victoria Hale was a lonely billionaire running from people who wanted her dead. Lily was a kid who'd lost her mother and was watching her father slowly disappear under the weight of worry and debt. Now they were a family, imperfect and complicated and real. And sometimes Ethan thought as he carried his sleeping daughter into their apartment, while his wife, held the door open. Sometimes the best things in life started with a crash, with chaos and blood and desperation, with one person asking for help and another person being brave enough to give it. The garage lights were still on across the street, Raphael probably working late on a project he couldn't leave unfinished. The warehouse was dark, but would glow tomorrow with people learning and building and trying. The city kept breathing around them, indifferent to their small story, their small triumphs. But it wasn't small to them. It was everything. It was the difference between drowning and swimming, between existing and living, between building walls and building homes. Ethan tucked Lily into bed and joined Victoria in their room. She was already under the covers, exhausted and happy, and exactly where she belonged. He climbed in next to her, and she curled against him like she'd been doing it forever instead of just months. "I love you," she said quietly. "I love you too. Even though I'm terrible at this?" "Especially because you're terrible at this. Means you're trying." She laughed softly. "We're going to be okay, right? All of us?" Ushman did. "Yeah, we're going to be okay." And they were. Not perfect. Not without struggles or setbacks or moments of doubt. But okay. Better than okay. They were building something that mattered, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one act of stubborn love at a time. Sometimes life crashed into you when you least expected it. Sometimes that crash destroyed everything you thought you knew. And sometimes, if you were very lucky and very brave, that crash was exactly what you needed to rebuild yourself into something better. Ethan fell asleep thinking about his father, hoping somehow the old man knew what had become of his garage, hoping he understood that letting go of the past wasn't betrayal. It was growth, that honoring someone's memory meant building on their foundation, not preserving it unchanged. Outside, snow began to fall again. The city settled into its late-night rhythm. And in a small apartment above a garage that had become something more than its parts, 3 people who'd found each other through impossible circumstances slept peacefully. Because in the end, that's what mattered. Not the money or the success or the recognition. Just people. Just love. Just the stubborn refusal to quit on each other even when quitting would be easier. Just family, however you built it, whoever you chose, whatever it took to keep it together. That was the real victory. The only one that lasted. And it was enough.